Thank you, Rosanna. Welcome, everyone. This is Washington State Building Code Council IBC Technical Advisory Group for November 14th, 2024. Rosanna, I don't see Dustin. Are
I'm here.
you? Oh, you are. There you are. All right. Dustin, are you able to please take roll?
Yes, I certainly am. Chair Primary Todd Bayreuther.
Here.
Chair Alternate Roger Haringa.
I am here.
Thank you. Let me open up one tool here real quick so I can see folks who are in the room, but maybe not right there. All right. Architect Primary Joe Mayo.
Present.
Thank you. For the alternate, Che Fortaleza. Not seeing them in the room here today. Building Official Primary Tim Woodard.
Here.
Alternate Steve Belzak. Not seeing them in the room. For the Fire Services Primary Lance Dahl.
Here.
For Cities and Counties Primary Hoyt Jeter. Not seeing Hoyt online today. Affordable Housing Representative Primary Todd Sullivan. Not seeing them online today. General Contractor Developer Primary Bill Mybush.
Present.
Thank you. Manufacturer Supplier Primary Brian Horseman. Oh, I see Bill Mybush on here. Sorry, I got you. I'm messing it up. All right, Structural Engineer Primary Josh Mergens.
Present.
Thank you. Alternate Trent Tinney. Not seeing them online. Person with Disability Accessibility Expert Primary Michael Shaw. I'm not seeing them online here today. Building Owner Property Manager Primary Brett Conway.
Present.
Thank you. General Public Subject Matter Expert Primary Michael Barth. I think I saw them on. Michael, if you're acknowledging us, you're muted today. For the alternate, Leah Summer. Not seeing them online. State Enforcement Agency Primary Paul Clark.
Here.
Thank you. Fire Protection Engineer Primary Andy Leonto.
Present.
Thank you. And then just to go back, Michael Barth, are you here and with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. With that, we have 9 seats representative and our quorum is 8, so we're good to go.
Okay.
Dustin,
Thank you.
Steve Belzak. I'm sorry, Steve Belzak here. Also, I'll be here for about half an hour, then I'll return at 3 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
You bet.
Okay, great.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I was late. I was at a meeting, so
Hey,
this is
Hoyt.
what.
Gotcha, Hoyt. Gotcha. All right. So with that, we have 11 seats represented.
All right, we're getting better. Thank you, everyone. Okay, let's ask if anyone from the public like to be recognized on this call. I'm sorry, go ahead, Patrick. I asked and then didn't look up.
Yeah. Patrick Hanks of the Building Industry Association of Washington. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Lucas?
Hi, Lucas Shattuck, Principal Fund Examiner with the City of Tacoma, here to speak about agenda item number 12, visitability, and I'm joined by our building official, Chris Seaman.
Okay. You said 13, right? No,
14.
12.
Or
Thank
12,
you.
sorry.
Yeah.
12, I think, yeah.
Thank you. Welcome, Lucas. Kathleen, please.
Very much. My name is Kathleen Petrie, and I am with King County and as backup to the EV ready proposals that were submitted by King County. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome, Kathleen. And Sophie.
Hi, yes, Sophie Marine with the American Wood Council, here to provide public comment on item 13, I believe, the embodied carbon proposal.
Yes, 14. We're going to talk about that in a second here with the agenda. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Sophie. Anyone else?
Yes, sorry, my name is Corey Shaw. I'm with the Washington Aggregate and Concrete Association. I'm also here to provide public comment on the same agenda item that was just mentioned.
On 14. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I might ask you a question in just a second here. Okay. Anyone else? If not, we'll go on to number 2, review and approve the agenda. I'll make a couple comments here first. One is John Suon. Was traveling this week and I'm having a flashback like I missed some requests there.
John Sue had reached out to me and asked that these proposals be tabled till next week. So 4, 5, and 6. And I let him know that I kept them on here just in case we complete everything else on the agenda today. We could have a little discussion on them, but he's requested that we don't take action on them until he's able to be present for the conversation.
Okay, so I'm not making it up. So with that, is there a motion to push 4, 5, and 6 to the end?
So
This
moved,
is-
Lance Dahl.
Okay, thank you, Lance, on that. And then
Second, Tim.
Tim, Micah, go ahead. I didn't ask for any comment, or
Would that also include item 9?
if you would like,
That would be great.
can we amend to include 4, 5, 6, and 9, please?
Friendly amendment accepted, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Yep, Tim.
Tim, thank you, Tim. Okay. Any other discussion on just those 4? We'll get to the other ones.
On those,
Okay, all those in favor? Sorry, go
on
ahead.
those, no more discussion. For
Okay,
me.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that reshuffles those. The ones I was gonna bring up are some of the bigger ones. And thank you for joining, Sophie and sorry, Cora. Question to the tag on 14. I feel that's a big one. Do we want to address it in order here? Do we want to dedicate time for that?
So
Or do you just want
Todd,
to
if I
start it
may-
and see where we are, take testimony since we have people joining us, and then decide if we want to push it to further
So-
discussion?
On item number 14, we are expecting a revised petition to come in on that one. That one was also requested to come in for next week. The petition should be on for next week as well. But I kept it on the agenda here today with the intent to move it towards the end. And as that particular one is anticipated to have a robust conversation, I thought if we get to it, we could still entertain some conversation on it just to get that ball and momentum rolling. But I don't have any indication on what changes are going to happen in the petition that we're expecting the revisions on.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. That's consistent with my knowledge too. So I guess I'll ask the tag and anyone who want to testify on that today. Would you prefer that so we're respectful of your time and not waiting? Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I will. I have also been aware of some of the changes. My suggestion is to push it off at least to the end of the agenda and probably until next week, because the changes to the agenda or the changes to the proposal are, I will just say the general change is to move all of their requirements into an appendix. So I think that's something that everybody needs to be able to take a look at and digest before we really get into the comments. So my suggestion is just to push it, and I don't know when the proposal is supposed to come in. Hopefully it can get published a few days ahead of time so people have time to look at it before we get into it. So that's my hope.
Okay, thank you, Roger. That's consistent, and I would say that's probably a request and maybe a requirement that we have 48 hours for people to review. Corey, yes, please.
Yeah, I would prefer that we defer
Okay.
discussing it until we have the right proposal in front of us.
Okay, agreed. Thank you. Sophie, you're okay with that?
Yeah, I would agree. And if there's a ample amount of time beforehand, like 48 hours to review the changes, that would be wonderful.
I think
Okay.
was indicated that the revised proposal should come in here by the end of the week. And I'm hoping that with the reduced meeting load next week, I'll be able to get the publication of agendas and everything out more timely than this meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Todd,
Thank you. Then
Lance.
it's up to the take. Go ahead.
Lance Dahl, I'd make a motion to move this to next week in light of what's come forward.
Thank you, Lance.
This is Tim, and I'll second that.
And with the second, thank you. Any other discussion? That's just moving item 14 to next week. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, go ahead, Sophie.
I'm not opposed. I know I don't have any power in this
Oh,
decision.
okay.
But my question was just if it would be possible to notify folks when it's posted, or if you're able to share that as quickly as possible, that would be appreciated.
Can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
But then again, the request there is we have at least 48 hours at worst case before the next meeting. Okay. Similarly, Joe and I've been helping on item 8. No, sorry. Where is it? 19. Item 19, the 510.2 proposal. There is draft language that I just forwarded to Rosanna and Dustin. Same situation. There's basically a striker petition there to for feedback. Would we want to defer that one, or do you want to talk a little bit about today and have it introduced? Either way, is that kind of the will of the tag?
Sorry, my hand's up.
Yeah, I see you right here. Thank you.
I took a look at that over this week as well. For my suggestion would be move it down at the bottom. If there is time, I think we could start the conversation about that item, because it certainly is not as there won't be as robust a conversation. And then I do think we should postpone any final action until next week, so we do have the 48 hours. But I would suggest moving to the bottom. If we get to it, we can start the conversation. If not, we address it next week.
Okay, I like that idea too. I mean, I agree that we would never put something out without the 48 hours before we take action, or we shouldn't, at least. We should not take action on it, but if that's okay with everyone, is there anyone opposed to that? Go ahead, Tim.
Not opposed at all. I was just thinking versus the bottom, we put it before all the John Sue ones. Since they're wanting that to be tomorrow anyway, so it'd be like 5 or 6 up from the bottom, I think.
Is that a motion, Tim?
That's so moved, Tim.
I'll come to you in a second, Mike.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a second. Okay, now Mike, go ahead. Not doing this quite correctly, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think we had already approved the agenda, but we're making a lot of changes.
No, we haven't yet. We're still
Okay,
amending.
Still making changes. The other recommended changes would be to relocate the single exit. Again, that's kind of just going to be a broach of a topic, and that is going to be left for the special tag. But there's a lot of other proposals behind it that probably need to be rediscussed or move forward before that comes up as a topic. So that would be another recommended change, is to relocate that somewhere way down the agenda, and maybe not even get to that today at all. Thanks.
I agree, Mike. Okay, so first of all, let's go back to finish off on 19 first. There's a motion, a second, that we move the 0989 to before, we're calling them the John Sue proposals. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. I know we could have done this in all one big motion, but I'm just being transparent about it. Okay, and then the second one I agree with. We want to make sure we're not having people hanging around for the single exit. I think the main intent here is that at some point we want to talk about it as a group, knowing that the council has already established an ad hoc committee, or has established the structure of one with the intent to push this there. But I think it is valid that the tag weighs in on direction and so forth, because ultimately this one comes back to the IBC tag. So the ad hoc does a lot of the work with subject matter experts specific to that topic. The council's established that. they're going to start taking applications and so forth. But then it would come back. So I think it's important that we at least, as it was submitted as a IBC proposal, that we talk about it. Okay. Any other? Is there a motion for the? We could just simply push that to a later meeting if that's what the tag wants.
I guess this is Tim. I would think I'd make a motion to move it to, okay, so I don't know what numbers these are anymore, but
Number
to after the 18 that we just had moved, we move it to after that. So we'd speak to 18 prior to we'd speaking to single exit.
Well, you also could just defer it till next week if we don't even want to talk about it today.
If there's
How
time.
about this, Tim? I'll do this. I'll make a motion to deal with what was it, item 13 to next week and not hear it today.
Okay.
This is Hoyt.
Thank you, Hoyt. That's the motion then. Is there a second? We're in opposition?
Still comfortable with my motion. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, well that's fine, Tim. If you prefer, then we can go ahead, Lance. You got to pick between Hoyt and Tim now, Lance.
No, I'll second Hoyt's and withdraw my motion, please. Okay. This is Tim.
Okay. I think it's probably the same effect, but sorry, Tim. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Okay, now, anything else, or can we vote on the whole agenda? Can we please hear a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
I'll make that motion, Lance. Adopt the
Second.
agenda as amended.
And I
by
second
Hoyt.
it.
Okay, any other discussion?
I just want to mention the minutes weren't ready. That's why it's not on here for this week's meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first and second to adopt the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Sorry for doing that on the fly, but also want to be transparent about it. Okay, next would be public comment for items not on the agenda. And you would like to address the tag. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I just noticed that yesterday the agenda and the items weren't posted exactly 24 hours before the start of the meeting. So just wanted to remind staff to please try. And I know there's a lot going on and there's a lot, but if you can just try to make sure they get posted at least 24 hours before, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
This is Jeff Shapiro. I don't have a hand raise feature because I'm on a browser. So I tuned in listening to the end of your discussion. You're going to delay the single exit discussion till next week.
Correct.
That was the motion. Yes, or yes, we did adopt that, Jeff, so that people didn't have to wait around if they're here to speak on that.
Okay, well, I guess I don't have to wait around, but I was just curious. Do you know, I guess you're familiar with what took place at the ICC hearing?
Yes. Yes, and that's why we do feel this is a bigger topic, and we have a lot of knowledge and a lot of obviously stakeholder input on this to inform the future ad hoc TAG that will happen, sometime probably after the first of the year, right, Dustin?
Yes.
We have to establish the council has established it, but they still have to accept applications and so forth. So it's really for the IBC and stakeholders to weigh in even at this early phase.
Okay, well, just for the record, I don't really care about it. I facilitated the discussion. I'm extremely familiar with it. And to the extent that you all are interested in my perspective, I'm happy to share. And if you're not, that's okay with me too.
We are interested and we will make sure, I think, that when it happens.
Okay, the other thing I just wanted to ask, is item 23 still on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't want to spend the whole afternoon on the call, but I don't know if you mind taking that out of order or I don't know whether Ken wants my help on that. It relates to my proposal to the IBC that's going to be heard in general, but I wanted to make myself available to assist. But again, I don't have all afternoon to work on the item, waiting for it to come up.
Understood. I don't think we should take it out of order, or we should have discussed that in the agenda, but understand respectfully that but I think it's at this point, it's still on agenda if we get to it.
Okay. Is Ken on the call?
He won't be able to make it today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that would probably weigh into whether or not discuss it anyway at that point.
Okay. Yeah. If he's not on the call, I mean, I'm prepared to help address issues, but if he's not on the call and it's late in the agenda, I will just let you know. Again, it's something that I'm trying to advance in the national code that Ken is just trying to advance faster in Washington state. To the extent that I can help with that, I'm happy to do so.
Okay.
Hey,
That
Jeff,
helps a lot. Thank you. I think the
Yeah.
TAG has heard that, and we'll take that in consideration if we get to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jeff, this is Hoyt.
Yeah,
If you want,
Hoyt,
you can
Hoyt.
reach out to me here in Tacoma, and I could try to get a hold of you with Ken too. Or you can just
If we
reach
get
out
to
to
it.
me directly. So.
Okay. Yeah. Feel free to call me if you need my help. Otherwise, I'll sign off. Thank you for your time.
Jeff,
Thank you, Jeff.
if you can wait a minute, I
Okay.
would like to just get it out there since we've talked about the single exit. I did volunteer to chair the ad hoc tag for the single exit and middle housing, I believe. I am hopeful that at the council meeting tomorrow, we will kind of formalize the timeline, start opening it up for people to volunteer for positions. So that tag is hopefully in process, and anybody here with knowledge and or passion about resolving that issue, please volunteer for our tag, which most of that work is going to be done next year along with the group 2. But so just an FYI, that's in process. I'm hoping we make progress tomorrow at the full council meeting, and that tag will be forming shortly.
Okay. Well, I'm available to be in an advisory capacity on that if you're interested. I have no client interest. I'm really just trying to be a facilitator, and I've got a pretty fair amount of knowledge on it. I'm currently negotiating between City of Austin staff and the petitioners here, the similar thing for City of Austin. So anyway, and I've talked extensively with Ardell and had discussions with Seattle Fire. I have a fair sense of what's going on, and I might be able to help you move that forward if you're interested. So you can put my name in the hopper, and I don't mind participating to the extent that I'm available.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh, wait,
Thank you.
Micah's on the
Roger.
call. If Micah's on the call, I take it all back.
Micah.
How
All right,
dare you,
Micah.
Jeff.
Go
Love you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for having you on, Jeff. That's nice. Just an FYI, I got a late message from Ken on the NFPA 13D item, which I believe Jeff was mentioning is item 23. Ken was asking if we could table that till next meeting, or to the I think he's indicating an IFC IBC combined meeting on Tuesday. So that just came in almost while we're having this discussion. So there we go.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
You can't make it, of course.
Okay.
I don't see that I have that invite, so you can just tell him to ping me if he wants me on. Okay, sorry, I didn't want to hijack your meeting, but I'm gonna sign off. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. I'll put it out there if anyone wants to make a formal motion, or we just leave it and address it when we get there, if we get to it.
This is Hoyt. I'd like to make a formal motion
Thank you.
to hear this with the IFC group, because it'd be good since we have that combined meeting. This has to deal both with fire and building, and I think item 23 would be the best time to do that. Would be on Tuesday, I think it was, right, Mike? I think you said. I think that's correct. Move it to that day that we hear it.
Okay.
I would second that for fire.
Thank you. I think that was Lance.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it was moved and seconded to move agenda item 23 or refer it to the IBC IFC combined committee meeting next Tuesday. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for that. Now, closing out, any other public comment? Okay, Mike is a thumbs up, not a hand. Thank you. Moving on to then the first agenda item, which now is agenda item 7, I believe, which is petition 066.
Yep, this one is from Sound Transit with our contact being Mark Murray, but I don't see Mark on the call. Is there, I don't know if anybody else from Sound Transit is here to speak on behalf of this one. I don't see anybody unmuting or raising hands. So this one is for fixed guideway transit and proposes some NFPA 130 amendments, but it also looks like it's looking to amend the occupant load factor table 1004 of the building code. They're going to change the fixed guideway and transit passenger rail systems section to what you see here. And then let me scroll down to their explanation statement. So for the table, the code change approval was approved last cycle to reflect requirements for fixed guideway transit and passenger rail systems, but there was an editorial error made when the table was updated. So that change in the table is meant to correct the editorial error. And then for section 5.3.11 of NFPA 130, the means of egress lighting corrects a reference to IBC 1013 for exit signs and corrects the apparent duplication of a reference to means of egress illumination in 2 separate provisions of NFPA 130. With this change, both IBC 1008 and 1013 are referenced. In 5.2.4.2, NFPA 130 does not provide clear language on the nature of the separation, such as what hourly rating is required. The IBC addresses this topic clearly in Chapter 5 and considers many of the factors outlined in Annex A of NFPA 130. By referring to the IBC plans examiners will be able to apply their IBC experience to light rail stations. And then in 5.2.4.5, NFPA 130 does not provide the clear language on the nature of this separation. Non-system areas of a light rail station include space not associated with the transportation, such as coffee shops. This amendment refers to the IBC to determine where fire separations are required. IBC Chapter 5 provisions will apply, including Section 508 and which is occupancy separations, and then I believe this is a mistake, 508 incidental uses. This simplifies work required by the designer and the plans examiner. And there's not too much more in here. 5.3.8.5, this amendment refers to the IBC because NFPA 101 is not adopted for light rail stations, and the state of Washington uses the IBC for its building code. Referring to the IBC and including a provision to allow security access turnstiles provides clarity for the plans examiner on what code applies. And then we get to 6.3.3.10 for exit stairs and doors. Chapter 6 of the NFPA 130 applies to trainways, not stations. This revision clarifies the IBC rather than NFPA 101. And applies to exit doors from trainways, which include tunnel cross passage doors, stair doors serving tunnels and elevated guideways, and doors from the emergency walkway where provided, allowing egress from the trainway through a station, for example. And then the last section they have modifications to is 6.3.5.12 for lighting systems for enclosed trainways. This amendment refers to IBC Chapter 10 rather than NFPA 101 for lighting systems for the means of egress for tunnels. NFPA 101-7.8 addresses illumination for means of egress. NFPA 101-7.9 addresses emergency lighting. IBC 1008 addresses the means of egress illumination, and IBC 1013 addresses exit signs. While the NFPA is more detailed code, many of the provisions are mirrored in the IBC, which is more concise. Clarifying that designers and plans examiners need only apply the IBC is an improvement. Also, referring to the IBC rather than NFPA 101 is logical because the state of Washington uses the IBC for its building code. We acknowledge NFPA has a higher standard for stairs, 10-foot candles, and Sound Transit has adopted the higher criteria as an owner requirement. And I'll scroll back up to look at the sections we're going here. And if anybody has questions, I'll be happy to navigate, but I can't talk on the merits of the proposal. Very informed.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Let's start there then. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Hoyt.
The one thing is, the NFPA, right, which is National Fire Protection Agency, is by the fire marshals, and the IBC is by, obviously the building officials a lot that end up doing it for the reviews. I can understand the rationale that they want to reference all those other codes in there. The one thing I want to be sure is the foot candle. I've had to deal with some of these things. That was the one item that I have. We should be with what the IBC does. And please clarify me, you were going through this pretty quick. I just want to be sure that we're still going to have that foot candle requirements for these two, because we do have these in Tacoma and I've had to review a few of them. So.
And as far as the foot candle requirement, you're asking that that's the metric we're using, or we're looking. It looks, I think.
Yeah, we're not going to reduce it. Basically, we want to keep it the higher foot candle. So.
Yeah, I think that they're going to a higher foot candle. The NFPA has a higher standard for stairs, so 10-foot candles in there, and it sounds like Sound Transit is wanting to adopt 10-foot.
But that's Sound Transit doing it. What I'm saying is I want to make sure it stays in the into the standard. I'm just saying hypothetically. I mean, Sound Transit's doing it, but if another person's doing it, I don't want them to read it to not use the 10-foot candles. That's what I'm asking.
Gotcha.
So
I don't see the specific language here in 6.3.5.12, but they are referencing section 1008 and 1013 of the IBC. And I can pull those up real quick if we want to see.
No, that's fine. You don't have to. Now that you pointed that out, I can see that. That's fine. I know what those code sections are. So
okay.
I just want to make sure that stays in there. So.
All right, this is Tim. I was just questioning our authority here, right? This code is traditionally reviewed by the state for approval, the NFPA 101 specifically, but this looks like it's the NFPA 130. So I'm questioning whether or not the state retains the authority over that. Other than that, when I look through these proposed amendments, as he suggests in his reason statement, it just basically synchronizes it all with the IBC requirements. And that's thought to provide the clarity that they're looking for when they're designing these. So in general, I wouldn't have an issue with that, as we've deemed the IBC a safe model code to use. But I just was wondering if there's anybody that could speak to the authority portion. If the state's still going to use the other NFPA when they're reviewing this, what good does it do to change it for the, our building code?
Well, I believe we have modifications to NFPA 130 in the IBC currently, but I don't believe that's the authority you're referencing, right? You're talking about 101 versus 130, and if we do something here, is there going to be conflict? Is the question?
No, I was under the impression that these Sound Regent Transit Centers, because they're federally funded and things of that nature, and get their funding from the state, that they're reviewed by the state agencies.
I do not have the answer to the question you're asking.
No, I could just tell you, Tim, we also here in the city of Tacoma reviewed the Sound Transit projects that are being built here in the city of Tacoma. So just not only the state did it also, but we also did it here for Tacoma. I don't know about other jurisdictions, but we do the review of Sound Transit stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tim or Hoyt, can you explain more to those of us that don't know that process? What state agencies are you referring to?
It's traditionally like the Department of Health. In this case, it might be a different department, such as transportation department or something to that effect.
Yeah, it was a transportation department. The transportation also had to review that, obviously, because it's part of the transportation system. They had certain requirements too that they wanted to make sure got height of it and things like that you have for their height of how high it has to be above grade and things like that. Those are kind of some of just a brief things real quick.
But nothing preempts the local building official, does it?
No, nothing. Well, we didn't let them preempt us. So I can't say that for everybody, but they had to get a permit here at the city of Tacoma, and I actually reviewed it. I did open up this code when I was reviewing some of it. Our fire marshal did also. Chris Seaman, who's now our building official. But I don't think there was any problems with it. If they're just clarifying, cleaning it up, it's not a big deal for me. They still needed a building code permit for it, especially for accessibility. They still had to be accessible. That was one of the items that I believe NFPA 13, I don't remember they had the accessibility requirements or that had to be required, but it was part of the IBC that got to the accessibility.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. That's your cue.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So I can provide some context probably for people. I was on the tags when Sound Transit came to us and asked for us to put in NFPA 130 for them because they were struggling with jurisdictions, different interpretations of different items in the code, and they would have rather just had NFPA 130 apply to them. There is not a state agency, to my knowledge, that reviews to NFPA 101. Those state agencies that do review the rail projects are reviewing more rail standards and things, not building code type standards like NFPA 101. Specifically to these requests, I mean, the sell to the tags before was we're going to adopt NFPA 130 so we have something and it's easy for us to enforce. My concern is that this is the building code for all the buildings we build in the state, and to have a bajillion specific amendments just for Sound Transit is a little bit onerous on the people that have to maintain the code. I'm thinking specifically people like Dustin. Every amendment we add is more work for them every year. So I would be curious as to why it's absolutely necessary to do these things. My experience is that when Sound Transit runs into an issue with a building official, they just want to go get a code change done instead of sitting down and talking and working with those building officials to come to an agreement about interpretation.
Chris, if I may ask a question on that, to that point, when Sound Transit came and presented to us, I'd raise the question, how much of this could apply to BRT systems, such as Spokane, for example, is going down the pathway.
Sure. None, because it's not fixed guideway stuff. So 0.
Yeah, I see that section right there, but is any of it overlap with other sections? Okay.
No, and it's not really that important with bus stuff. You're on grade. You're not an elevated platform and you're not in a tunnel. That's what all this important stuff is for us to look at. And I don't know how much experience the Tacoma and Seattle, I see Micah shaking his head, have had a lot of experience with Sound Transit on projects. And I feel like anecdotally, the month after we adopted as a tag NFPA 130, Sound Transit came to me and asked for an exemption to it. So I'm concerned that we're just going to keep adding rules that apply just to them into the code, and it just makes everything cumbersome for us. That would be my only feedback. Nothing in there seems like it's that critical and warrants an amendment for it, if that makes sense. Like, it seems like any logical building official would be able to get there on this kind of thing.
But then, Chris, just one question. I remember when we worked on this one, did they have the accessibility requirements in there in that NFPA? I didn't remember that. I remember I brought that up on one of the projects. I apologize if
I don't recall.
Because I remember they fought me with that, and I'm saying, no, you have to do it. And they ended up doing it, but it was a fight that I said, you got to meet the accessibility requirements routes. So
I believe
was just wondering.
NFPA 130 references the ANSI standard, if I remember correctly, but I don't know that for sure.
Hey, thank you for that, Chris. Micah.
Thanks. And thanks, Chris. We do work on this, and I haven't been as involved in it as Ardell. Unfortunately, she has other meetings. But my understanding from this proposal is that this is a coordination with them to better align with code officials and what sections of the building code apply and not send it elsewhere. I think this is some cleanup there to help with that, Chris, and that's my understanding. Although there's a few minor items that we may be concerned with, but it sounds like we need to have Sound Transit here to kind of walk us through this and what it all means exactly. I'm not going to speak for them, of course, but so far Seattle doesn't have any major issues with these proposals. I think they're a better coordination of what the jurisdictions that are looking at these are doing with Sound Transit. In addition to that, like I said, we did have a couple minor changes, but they reflect on items that we have specific in Seattle code that may be beneficial here, but I'm not going to propose those at this time as changes. I think we need to get Mark Murray here in the meeting with us to discuss those further. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Micah. Okay, any other comments or questions? We don't have a motion yet, so what would the TAG like to propose there?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to not approve it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna jump in here. So that would be a motion to deny. We
Yes.
haven't done this yet, which is fine. I think we should discuss, well, let's hear from Tim first, unless you're just gonna second that. I want to discuss the process. If you just want to
I'm
jump
not
in.
gonna. Yeah, I wasn't gonna second it. So I was thinking along the lines of what Micah said of pushing it. Granted, we still may not accept their changes, but especially with the meeting notice being a little questionable and other reasons, I would hate to deny this because then it's gone for good, without them getting a fair opportunity to speak to it. If they were here and they spoke to it, then I may be on board with what Hoyt's motion was, but right now I would vote to table this until we can get a representative available, hopefully next meeting.
And I will pull my motion if that's an option. I wasn't sure if that was an option. If it is, then we could table it till they can explain it more. But
Okay, let's okay. So right now I've heard you put your point on that. Let's talk a little bit first before we make another motion and just revisit, because what I'm trying to be careful here is, remember, we're now under these new rules, which is now in statute, that if we as a TAG deny something, it can't be heard any further at the committee or the council. So that's new. So what we're trying to do, and this is just my opinion, but it's up to the TAG, is to establish, should we, when we come up with a proposal that we think could be denied, do we want to vote in the affirmative first and not have it pass, and then be able to have some response and a rebuttal from that, and then formally vote to deny it at the appropriate time? It's a question. It's not in any rules or anything. It's just me as chair asking the TAG how they want to address this. So, and the first step could be we just simply table it because we don't have the proponent here, and I think that's a good first step if that's the desire.
I would agree with that assessment, Lance Dahl, that it would be nice to hear transit hear this. I also agree that at times stuff that's onerous for the rest of the state and only affects a county or two, when we add this stuff to the code, just adds unnecessary stuff at times.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lance. Go ahead, Dustin.
So here in the discussion, and the kind of hesitancy to move this proposal forward, I do like the idea of tabling it so that we aren't outright doing it without any representation from the proponent. But my ask of the group here, I've heard the discussion, but is there any particular section that we have specific issues with, or are we looking to hear just more support from the proponent and we just really need them here to talk on it? Or could I point them to a section that we might want some work on, so that we might come with a revised proposal that might get a better traction within the group?
This is Hoyt here. NFPA 101 and NFPA 1 and some of the other ones, I'm a little bit familiar with it. To me, when you start deleting stuff from NFPA 101, this is one of the things I go to our fire guy, which would be Chris Seaman, that I would talk to here at the city of Tacoma. I'm not sure it's 100% correct what they're changing here. I don't buy the argument because people have problems enforcing the code that's adopted. If you adopt a different code, you could say the same thing for the ANSI, you could say same things for structural, you could do that all the time. I don't see the justification that they put in here, why we have to change it to the IBC, from NFPA 101. I still think it's fine the way it is, in my personal opinion.
Thank you, Tim.
As I look through here, the things I'd like to hear from the proponent more about is the issues that they faced because of these. And if they're valid issues, then I think that creates more merit why we go through with these changes. But if it's like I think was said, one building official gave them a hard time, then I don't think that's a good enough reason to really be changing the code for, for their benefit.
Okay. So Dustin, I think that's pretty good. If there is a motion to table and then have staff reach out with those concerns and questions, and we'll give the proponent a chance to join us next time. So is there a motion to table?
This is Tim. I would make a motion to table this until the next meeting or the following.
Second.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We could just say to table it too. But if you want to put
Sure.
time certain on it, that's fine. Okay.
Any future meeting.
There we go. Dwight. Do you
Yeah.
agree? Second?
Yeah,
Okay.
second. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay. So it's just a simple motion, a second to table. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. With that, 066 is tabled. Agenda item 8 is petition 134.
And that is me.
Tim, okay, go ahead, please.
So on behalf of the tag, we have a specific whack in regards to these special event structures. And as a result of that, the new model code changed that added public occupancy temporary structures, as well as modified the references to include what's referenced, the new provisions that are installed in 3103. So essentially, the only thing that we're doing here as a tag is incorporating the new model code changes with the existing exemption that Washington State had for yurts, basically under 500 square feet. The only thing I'll add is the reason I put it as number 3 is so it wouldn't conflict with model code at all. It would just be an additional exception to the bottom of that running list that'll be in the new model code. So again, we're not making any changes to the model code for the 2024 except for to add in our exception number 3. But these are underlined because it does modify the WAC accordingly to coordinate with the 2024 code.
And this is Hoyt to help support this. We've been using this for a while, the 500 square feet for yurts and things like that. I think we should maintain that because the model code doesn't really actually deal with yurts or unheated tanks.
Okay. Okay, are there any questions or comments on this? Okay, is there a motion or, well, what would the tag like to do? Is there a motion to recommend?
I make a motion to approve this amendment.
Okay. Wait. Is there a second?
This is Paul. I'll second it.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that petition 134 is recommended for approval by the full council. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, 134 is recommended for approval. Thank you, Tim and Hoyt. Next would be agenda item 10, petition 126.
We skipped over number 9, which is 055.
We did. I crossed it out for the wrong reason. Okay, it's agenda item 9 is petition 055, please.
We added that to the John Sue proposals.
Oh,
So
we
that's,
did?
Oh, it
that's
was.
one
That
of
was a
his.
micro petition. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you.
So I wasn't wrong.
Yeah,
All right.
sorry.
Did I skip over the wrong one then?
No, I didn't I have notes on the agenda here as a result of our stuff, but it's on my screen and I didn't get one on item number 9 there, so it is at the end of our list today. So we are on agenda item number 10, number 126.
Okay, thank you. And do we have a proponent?
This is Brett Conway.
Yes, this is Brett. On behalf of the TAG, we needed to update or consider updating the reference standards in chapter 36 to redact out the referencing the International Plumbing Code and aligning it to the Uniform Plumbing Code. And really that's the whole kit and caboodle on this small one.
Okay. Very straightforward. Any questions or comments or a motion?
This is Tim. I'd make a motion to approve the proposal.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you, Tim.
can I just on a comment real quick? I didn't get a
course.
chance to review this. Did you go look at the Uniform Plumbing Code 24 and look at these references to make sure they are still correct? Because sometimes they move them around. I personally have not done that. Usually I like to do that. Was that done?
No, I did not. The references that we see on the screen below the Uniform Plumbing Code.
Right, because though sometimes they move the chapters around, right? You know, I would hate to approve something that we didn't at least open up the 24 and just make sure that's the same as it was for the prior code. And I've been gone obviously for vacation, but that would be something I would want to make sure we check before we approve something, because then it's bad to approve something that now, let's just say 1503.4, 1503.4 for whatever reason changed to 1503.5. But now we have a conflict and it's not correct. So that's what I would like to at least someone, at least on the tag or whoever, put this in to make sure they just at least look at and you could do it online. It's free to look at UBC 24 to look at those to make sure it is correct. That's all I was hoping someone would have done.
That's a good comment, Tim. I think we could recommend it and make sure that that's checked before we vote on it, the whole package, but go ahead, Tim.
We don't need to do that. So those reference sections that are below it are references to the IBC, where the IBC uses this as a reference standard. So therefore, there's no change necessary or no coordination necessary. In those sections, it'll now reference the UPC, not a specific code section in the UPC. It'll just say when those code sections of the IBC are referencing the IPC. Did I say that correct? that is the reference standard to use is the UPC. So we don't need to do any coordination for that. It's all built in.
But that's not true, because you see how they give the sections in there? That's the actual specific sections to the Uniform Plumbing Code.
No, those are specific sections of the IBC.
Oh, I got it wrong then. My mistake then.
Yeah.
You're right. Actually, now thinking, you're absolutely right. These are from the IBC.
Yeah.
Forget, pull it out. Tim's right. That was a mistake on my side. You're absolutely right. This is not from the Uniform Plumbing Code. This is sections of the IBC. Sorry about that. I don't know why I was brain dead for some reason. So.
That's good. Michael, is that your comment?
Yeah, essentially, I was going to point out that these are IBC code sections, not UPC, but that obviously has been fixed. Yeah, I agree with Tim. I don't think there's any need to change anything else here. It seems sound like it is.
Okay, thank you. Check my memory. I think we're on a first motion. Do we have a second? Is that correct? We don't have a second yet?
No, I'll second it.
And am I right about that? Dustin, are you keeping notes?
I'm trying to. I didn't quite catch who made the motion. I heard it, but I didn't know if it was solidified as a motion that we were discussing. So
Who made the motion?
on the motion, I guess, is my question.
I might be making it up. Is there a motion to recommend approval?
This is Tim. I'll make the motion to recommend approval.
I'll second
Tim
it.
and then Hoyt. Okay, now we have it. Any other discussion? Okay, the motion and second is to recommend for approval by the full council 126. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, petition 126 is recommended for approval. Thank you. Item 11 is petition 053.
This one is from Julius or Wabo, and Julius was our contact. And I don't see Julius is online here today. So, Julius, would you mind speaking to your petition here?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Julius Carrion, City of Bellevue, representing WABO Technical Code Development Committee. This proposal is to adopt the two supplements that ASCE published after the 2024 ICC building code has been adopted. So this is to adopt the mid-cycle supplement documents that ASCE published, because these are not yet adopted reference standard in the base code. So supplement one is mainly editorial revision and updating reference standard in the document. The significant changes at supplement 2, they publish a new provision for determining flood hazard area. Instead of a 100-year event, it's gonna be a 500-year event to meet the target reliability of structures within flood hazard zone. So that's basically the two change incorporated in these two supplements.
Okay, Tim?
I would just like to ask Julian, because I'm not 100% familiar with ASCE's process. When they issue supplements, those are essentially guaranteed to be adopted in the future version of the ASCE.
It's adopted by ASCE, but I think ASCE still needs to submit it in the ICC to be adopted in the IBC.
Yeah, I can answer that question. Yeah, pretty much that's exactly what happens. The supplements find some changes that need to be done. They're able to get it in quicker because it's on a longer cycle. So yeah, I have not yet seen where they have not put in the supplements that get adopted to the next round. So in my experience, so the answer to your question is yes.
Okay, Micah?
Thanks. I just want to throw a voice of support to this. The State Building Code Council has done this before. If you look at WAC 5150 3500, we had done this for supplements 1, 2, and 3 that came out from ASCE previously. So again, this is kind of consistent with previous actions where when these supplements come out that we do try to adopt them into the code and have those for reference for our structural folks. Thanks.
And my question, this has come across a couple other standards. It's appropriate to call it under the main reference. You never want to create a separate reference for those, right? Okay. Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to adopt this proposal.
Okay. Thank you. Hoyt?
This is Tim. I would second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So it's been moved and seconded that petition 053 is recommended for approval by the full council. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, petition 053 is recommended for approval. I have a note here in 12. Oh, that's because we have, is it Lucas? Okay, so next is agenda item 12 with petition 003. And is that, I wrote Lucas, or it's my bad handwriting. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
Lucas Sheduk. And Lucas, looks like you're online.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Welcome, Lucas.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chair. Lucas Shattuck, Principal Plan Examiner of the City of Tacoma. Happy to be here to speak on this petition today. Essentially, it proposes a new Appendix Q for visitability. And I see we're in competition for Appendix Q, and I don't know how that will be reconciled, or if it's just who crosses the finish line first, but just wanted to point that out.
It would be an editorial fix to just name one or the other. And, you know, if there's a preference to have one listed before the other, we could discuss that at a little bit later date. But Q and R are probably up for grabs at the moment.
Okay.
Could I just add that I'm having a hard time hearing? There's just a big echo in the room or something.
Is it my audio that's you're having trouble hearing?
Yes.
Okay, I can try another audio setting. I apologize for that. When I'm in Zoom, I don't get very good audio results. Will you let me know if you hear any improvement?
Yeah. Tim, can you hear better from him?
Do you hear any better improvement?
I myself, I wasn't hearing any echo on your audio feed.
Yeah, I wasn't
It's-
either. So
It's
Okay.
fine. I think I can hear you. It's just I think what's happening is you're connected to probably your video camera versus to your mic on your on your headset. So it's just it's
I
like you're speaking
am.
from a long distance. So
I'm
yeah.
sorry. You're exactly right, and I'm doing that because I got better results last time with that, and I apologize if that's not the case.
No worries. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Well, we're proposing Appendix Q for visitability, and it's pretty simple in its code construct, at least, and it's constructed the way many appendices are in the building code. We've proposed a purpose statement, a scope, an applicability, a definition, and basically what this is trying to do is point towards the ANSI Type C unit design standards that are already in effect. Those Type C unit design standards have been in the ANSI since the 2009 version of the ANSI. And we can go into some of those ANSI requirements. Most of you are probably somewhat familiar with them, though we might all be more familiar if there was the ability to implement those standards, but to date there has not been the ability to do so. So what we're proposing is an optional appendix that a jurisdiction could adopt when they adopt the state building code, and it would apply when you have 3 or more units on a site, but also at the same time it would apply only when you do not already have type A and B units. As you know, you may have type B units, you have 4 or more units in a building. You may have type A units already when you have more than 10 units on a site. This is seeking to kind of fill that void when you have somewhere between 3 and 10 units on a site. And it's really trying to respond towards housing needs, and specifically like with House Bill 1110, where they're charging jurisdictions that have populations exceeding 25,000. They're requiring higher density, essentially taking the place of any single family zoning that a jurisdiction would have and replacing that with at least 4 units on any kind of site and increasing that density. And they're specifically asking for to encourage middle housing. Middle housing could be small apartment buildings. It could be 3 to 10 unit buildings like we're talking about here. It could be a combination of IRC and IBC buildings. triplexes, fourplexes, townhouses, etc. So what this seeks to do is get some low level of its visibility, not accessibility, but some sort of low level enhanced access to these dwelling units that fit this middle housing. Other thing to point out about Housing Bill 1110, why we think that this amendment is particularly appropriate for Washington, is in-house bill and together with the Growth Management Act, they're charging jurisdictions to they're charging jurisdictions to establish basically anti-displacement policies and regulations, and that's a specific charge in the House bill that you'll find. They're trying to address displacement and exclusion of housing. So we found that this would be the best way to do that. You'll find the type C unit standards again in the ANSI in the same chapter as you would with A and B units. What the type C unit essentially does, it seeks to eliminate changes in vertical elevation along a means of egress, gets you to a visitable entrance. It is requiring a no threshold at the entrance and requiring a 32-inch width clear opening at doors, getting you to the main living area of the visitable level and getting you to a bathroom if it's provided on the main visitable level, and getting a fixture clearance around the toilet in that bathroom, blocking in the walls in case grab bars are added at a future date similar to a type B unit, and then looking at reach ranges for temperature controls in the unit. That's a summary for those standards. Just to conclude, I just want to point out those standards already exist. Like I said, they've been in the ANSI since the 2009 version of the ANSI. We're not proposing any new accessible requirements or any amendments to them. We simply want to establish this optional appendix to point to those standards.
Hey, Tim. Thank you.
I think my questions are just in regards to the intention behind putting it in an appendix, because theoretically an appendix is still an optional adoption, and it seems as if we could still, you know, if a local jurisdiction wanted to adopt Appendix C or Type C units, they could still do that with just out of the, I guess, the ANSI standard. So I was just kind of curious from you, like the intention behind putting it in a separate appendix like this.
Yeah, there's two options. One is to try to get into the IBC and make amendments there. The feedback we got from state building code, et cetera, was that you know, one that's a bigger lift and would, you know, require, you know, to plug it into the IBC along with like type A and B units, for example, would present a bigger change and then wouldn't allow the flexibility for jurisdictions to adopt it or not based on whether they felt it was appropriate to do so. We were also given the guidance that it would not be appropriate for jurisdictions to modify accessibility through any other means, like through a zoning code amendment or anything like that, because you're lightly touching accessibility. Even though the type C unit is described as a visitable unit, it just flies a little too close to the sun, and it just wouldn't be appropriate for jurisdictions to do it in any other way other than an amendment to the IBC. And just one thing I forgot to mention too, just place that in your minds too, is that we intend on, through phase 2, we intend on proposing a similar appendix to the IRC, which is trying to do the same thing, just plug that hole where you might have multiple IRC units on one site, trying to get at least one of the units to be accessible.
Okay. Thank you. Chris.
Oh, found it. Actually, the one point, Lucas, we actually are not allowed to make any modifications on the local level regarding accessibility, to answer your question, Tim. So we can't do this locally. We tried to at first. That was what we were going to do. But we were advised by the State Building Code Council that there's RCW that says we cannot. And the only way for us to adopt this locally is to get it in the state code. And we figured that because that is the case, we wouldn't want to go so far as to make it mandatory throughout the state and then allow jurisdictions to make the choice for if it's applicable to their own.
But Chris, do we need to unpack what that RCW says? Why would the code council have authority then to
The
put this in?
RCW says local jurisdictions shall not make any modifications that impact RCW 1927.
No, I've got it, Chris. If you
Oh, you
want
got it? How close was I?
1927-040.
Oh, I was so close.
States nothing in this chapter shall authorize any modifications of the requirements of chapter 70.92 RCW, which deals with accessibility. That is either more restrictive or less restrictive. Jurisdictions are not authorized to modify accessibility either way. So it would have to be through the State Building Code Council, which does have the authority looking at this to modify accessibility or allow additional accessibility standards. So yes, you were close, Chris.
Not bad, I think.
Okay, thank you for that. Hoyt.
Yeah, it's Hoyt Jeter. I work with Chris. He's my boss. So I want to say also, I work on the ANSI standards committee and stuff. This is actually these type C units are a necessity for people, actually even people that are getting older and stuff. And I think it's important for the state of Washington that at least we give jurisdictions an option to be able to use this provision that has already been well worked out and detailed in the ANSI codes. And if you have to put it in the building code, like we said earlier, or you just can't do it. Jurisdictions don't have an option. So I hope you guys will vote with the way I'll vote, is to put this in there. So
Thank you, man. Okay, Michael.
Thanks, Lucas. Thanks, City of Tacoma folks. I do have some questions on the proposal. You state in your cost adjustment that this does not apply to all units. But in the requirements, this says it applies to all units that are not type A or type B. Or at least it says where no type A and type B have been provided, the provision of this appendix shall apply.
Yeah. Sorry,
So
Lucas, jump in if you.
Go
I
ahead.
know where you're going, Micah. The intent there, and if the wording is not clear, the intent there is that if a site has provided a type A or type B unit, this appendix does not apply because you've already provided something greater than a type C unit.
Okay.
And what we're asking, what it is supposed to say, the intent, and again, if the intent is not clear, definitely beat it up. The intent is if you have 3 or more units, build one type C.
Okay.
Unless you have a type A or a type B, in which case you've done better. And I think Lucas did not touch on, but we did reach out to several home builders locally. They told us that as long as they knew it was coming, the cost difference for them would be negligible.
Okay.
Because it is not the same. I know Lucas didn't get into what a type C unit is, but you have to have an entrance into it that is, we'll use the word accessible, flat, but it does not mean all entrances. It does not mean the sidewalk has to be accessible. It could be the parking spot. So there could be stairs up to the house, but the garage is flat and there's a level entry into the house. It just means you don't get a stoop, which people like from a design perspective, but it cost-wise, feedback we have is almost nothing.
Okay. No, that's I think I agree with you on that. I guess some of the other technical questions is even that doesn't necessarily when you look at the code language again, I'll go back to the one section right there that says what you're clarifying where the provisions of this shall apply if there's no type A or type B, but then it's later on under section Q103 it says it only applies to a certain percentage when there's 3 or more new dwellings or sleeping units. I think I know where you're going with this, but I'm gonna use my opinion. I think there needs to be some cleanup in this and how the individual sections work together to make it flow and actual for the code official to know where to apply this or when to apply this, even if they adopt the appendix as a whole.
Yep.
That's it. I'm happy to help and thanks.
Thanks, I'd appreciate it. The intent of that section you're talking about, Micah, is if you have a 100-unit plat, 5% of those units that they build for that plat would be type C. That's the intent, whether or not it says that well.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, thank you. This is for the record, this is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington, and my apologies, I did not see this proposal until it came up at the meeting, so I didn't get a lot of time to review it. I'm trying to understand exactly. Obviously, we're very supportive of following any federal or state requirements when it comes to visibility or accessibility. Are the requirements that this is trying to include, is it just a standard that's out there and available, or is this a law that needs to be complied with?
I can answer that question if you like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So right now that's in the standard, the 2017 type C units are visible in section 1105. Okay, this is actually a new. We're in the ANSI. We're not in the federal housing because the federal is looking at adopting the ANSI of this standard, which would come in, but they're still back almost to the 2009. They're not in, or even before that. I think they're in the 2006 still. But this is actually in the 2017 ANSI. Talks about type C visible units. What this will end up doing is actually putting a direction to show in the IBC that it doesn't get kind of missed, and you're actually the ANSI tells you how to build the type C units. It just tells you have to provide a type C unit. So it has actually been worked out in the ANSI standard. It's pretty clear in the 2017. And this is where we're trying to get this actually in to be specified in chapter 11. And hopefully that answers your question. If you have any others, I know a little bit about it because I help with the ANSI standard development with Kim Paulberg and things like that. So.
Okay, thank you, Wade. I see Russell.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong then. It's my understanding that the A1171 for the type C units, neither of the model codes don't specify any scoping standards for the type C. They just, the A1171 just put together the type C as a standard that could be adopted by different jurisdictions.
Yep, you're correct.
But it's not something that any of the model codes currently include. So to Patrick's point, it's not a law that we have to comply with currently. It's just something that can be adopted, and they've created standards for it.
Right, but you can't, our state doesn't allow you to do that. That's what we're trying to get to. This just tells you now you can, this is why if you look, that's what we're doing the appendix Q, is to say if it's in the appendix and the state adopts that, then individual jurisdictions can adopt appendix Q.
Okay.
Right now, we're not allowed to do that. So it is in the standard right now in the 2017 that if I remember correctly, that is the one referenced, but we're at a standstill. There's a conflict there. And this is all we're doing is saying, okay, if a jurisdiction wants to use that type C visible units that's in the standard, it specifically says, yes, you can do that. And that's what that's what's trying to be accomplished.
Great. Thanks for that clarification.
So I need a little help. I understand the technical side of this, but I'm not clear how a jurisdiction adopts this. Is it in a zoning overlay, or is it just simply a section, a local amendment to the building code?
Yeah, when they adopt the IBC as modified by the state, then they would choose the appendices that they are adopting with that.
So it's the pathway where it doesn't have to come back to the State Building Code Council because it's already an appendix. But so then it would apply to any residential building or occupancy in the building code? I don't.
No, what it is if the state adopts the appendix, the way I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, that means a jurisdiction now can adopt the appendix outright and use it. If the state, because it's dealing with accessibility, there's a
Yeah,
state law that I
Hoyt, I
believe
don't
that's
think you
correct.
quite caught Todd's question. It was, does it apply to every single dwelling unit? It applies to projects with 3 or more dwelling units. So it does not apply to a custom home builder building one house for a client. It does not apply to somebody building one duplex, but it would apply to somebody building a triplex, fourplex, fiveplex, or say a 100-unit plat. If
If
the
I
local
did,
adoption
so
picked it
thank
up.
you, Chris. So if we dug into ICC A7117, you're saying that would say any,
Nope,
if
that's
you
where
have
the
3 or more
scoping
dwelling
language
units.
in what we wrote, the scoping language says projects with 3 or more dwellings.
Where is that?
Up top, I
Yeah.
believe. If you want to scroll up, Dustin.
Yeah, just to let you know, the standard just tells you how to do it. This is going to tell you when you have to do it.
I just don't see the 3 or more. Maybe I'm just missing it.
It's actually at the very bottom one.
Oh, is that where it is? Okay, sorry. We wrote it a while ago.
And I guess my question here is, I obviously don't agree with the technical aspect of if you were going to do this, but what I'll just be kind of honest, what concerns me is that the commentary, it says unintended impacts by House Bill 1110. What's the motivation here to say
Sure.
3 or more? Is to say,
Yep.
oh,
Yep.
we're trying to create another obstacle towards.
Yeah. Nope. I hear it.
Okay.
And the response there, and we've thought about it and talked about it. So traditionally, we've seen development that is apartment buildings, right? Of scale, of substance, 3-story walk-ups, larger apartment buildings. What House Bill 110 has told us we have to do is distribute that density. So we're going to get these small infill projects, and nothing will be required for those projects. 0 accessibility. And so what we'll be doing is we're shifting our units that we're building from 3-story walk-ups, where we might have even gotten a type A unit, right? A fully accessible unit. We're going to be building a lot of 6-unit on one lot type projects, and all of those will be lacking in any kind of accessibility unless we have some way to require it. And that's the unintended impact of that House bill. We're shifting where development's going to happen.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'll reserve my concern for, well, go ahead, Micah.
Thanks. And just on that last topic, that will, the 6-unit ones that we will be constructing based on that House bill may have accessibility. That depends on the outcome from the special tag and what they vote to adopt. That was part of the bill. I think we fought for that language. Is they were trying to strike it, but they said that we can consider the accessibility and life safety stuff. So hopefully it does get included. However, I think one of the questions the tag needs to ask here from the proponent, and Chris, you can probably answer this. I believe your intention here is to have this as an appendix where it states that the provisions contained in this appendix are not mandatory unless specifically referenced in the adopting ordinance by the jurisdiction. In other words, that's similar to WAC 51, 51, 60, 106, which is Appendix T for residential. In other words, this is one of those where the state's going to put it out there. It is not required to be enforced by a jurisdiction. It's just there as an optional item with code language for jurisdictions to adopt in their ordinance. So you'd have to include this appendix number in your adopting ordinance for it to be mandatory in your jurisdiction. It would not be mandatory in the state.
Yep, 100%. And that was intentional.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think that's what you're asking somewhat as well, Todd. What does this apply to? And it would apply to those 3 units or more if the jurisdiction adopts this appendix number specifically in their ordinance. If they don't adopt it, it's not required at all.
Yeah, that's correct, Micah. That's
and it's
exactly
not an option.
Yeah,
and
that's.
I think what Hoyt and Chris were getting at too with the accessibility is, you know, if a jurisdiction, not even a jurisdiction, if a builder wanted to use these in a jurisdiction, a type C, the jurisdiction has no regulation on them because they can't create regulation on them based on that prohibition in the RCW. So I agree with where they're going with this text, even if it needs some work. Thanks.
Thank you, Micah. Patrick.
I guess I'm still not quite understanding here. I'm hearing on one side that's saying it's not, increasing the standards, but then it sounds like it's increasing the standards, and it sounds like part of the problem might require a legislative fix to state law instead of a fix at the building code level. And I'm very cautious about anything that could increase the cost of residential construction, especially since this will apply broadly. Most of the residential stuff covered under the commercial code has 3 or more dwelling units. So that's, that's going to hit a large part if a jurisdiction were to adopt this. So those are just some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Patrick. Shane.
Yeah, it's Shane Ellis, American Wood Council, but I'm speaking purely on my own behalf. I just overall concept. I don't think there's a really huge issue with providing independence like this, because obviously that'd be local adoption if they so wanted it. But I am a little concerned on the language regarding how you come up with the 5%, and just the fact that it's making reference to developments with 3 or more dwelling units. And I just think that really need to be more specific to say that, it's the development of a single site. Because I could see there being some type of confusion where, you might have, multiple lots, subdivision, and you have some single family, you've got some with 3 or more units, and suddenly someone's applying this to those single family homes. And I don't think that's the intent of what's being brought forward.
Shane, that is the intent. The intent, at least what we would like to adopt locally, is for the plats, right? When we have a larger development, that some of those units they design and create would be type C. But the developers we have spoken to, we have a large plat going in right now. I sat down with them and asked them, if you knew up front that you were going to have to do 5% of these this way, what would have been the cost? And they said nothing. So that is the intent, absolutely, to be applied to developments. That's the way we wrote it. If the tag decides that that's not appropriate and wants to amend it further, that's, at the tag's discretion.
So I think, okay, so if that's the case, then the last sentence that talks about the dwelling units on the site shall be considered and determine the total number. I think then you're going to be restricting yourself. So I just think there's just language. If that's what you're going for, then some way or another that just needs cleaned up a bit. And then also, if that's the direction, then you probably also need to tie this into the IRC.
Yeah, that's also the
within
intent.
Chapter 3. So
that's what I was going to add, and some of the language there is mindful of that requirement, that will be coming with an IRC appendices too. And I just wanted to point out, like, right now, this by itself, it doesn't apply to a builder building a bunch of single family homes. It's because it's only when you pick up the IBC and you're in the IBC. But again, we do want a parallel appendices in the IRC that steers you towards the same threshold. Basically, when you're picking up the IRC and you're in the IRC, that when you build a certain number of units under the IRC, then you would be required to do visible units as well. And you may, House Bill 1110 is create, we don't want to inadvertently create a bunch of housing stock that's a mix of IBC and IRC buildings on one site and wind up with, say, 60 units total and not have any visitability or accessibility. And so that's what this proposal tries to fill that hole.
Thank you. Go ahead. Hoyt, are we back to you?
Yeah, I just wanted, this type C, okay, unit is in the standard, and it has been developed, and it has been done by the specialists, just like you do with the structural standards, just like this is in 2017 A117, okay? as we said earlier, I don't want people to get this in. What the state law says for us is when you're doing stuff for these type of units, we need to have it in the building code of state by the state building code council so we can adopt this in the ordinance and things like that without having going through all these different provisions. And this will be in the appendix that will give us a direction to be able to do it. So I'm hoping the other members on this tag member will vote for this because this is the future and this will be something I think has been well worked out, and it's time for us to, you can nitpick the little words and stuff, but in reality, it pretty much summarizes what needs to be done, and I think it's pretty clear. So.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Mike.
Hey, well, first I'd say I'm fully supportive of this and putting it in an appendix. I certainly appreciate what's trying to be done here, and I would encourage it to move forward. Where I have a question though is in the applicability, because first of all, we're in IBC, so any new dwelling units, essentially the IBC section 1108 is going to require anything with more than 4 units to be type B anyway. Anything with more than 10 units requires the type A. So I don't know if we would ever be in a situation where accessible A or B are not required. Because again, we're talking anything more than 4 already has to be all type B, obviously with the exceptions that apply in, for slope property and yada, yada that the code allows for. So I'm not sure where the applicability would be for it. And that's kind of where I'm curious is and in that language of, of if this is in an appendix chapter, how do we make that language to where it would be more applicable and hopefully used?
Thank you, Mike. Tim.
Yeah, I can just speak to this, to the traditional standard, how people get out of doing accessible units, which is 2-story units. So they'll build basically an apartment complex with each unit being 2-story, and then you could do unlimited amounts and no accessibility whatsoever. So there's could be still standards. I do think that the majority of this, they're actually looking for IRC revisions that they should be considering, because I think that's when it's going to be most applicable. I'm totally with you, Michael. 99% of the time, if they're not doing that, this is already going to be captured anyway. But yes, I see the point that Shane made about having confusion within the sections of development versus site and synchronizing those. I think that'd be very easy to do. I think if this was going to be something that they try to apply to a residential development, then Micah's comment about something that helps capture those concerns is also met. So I think if the proponent's comfortable with tabling this, like we've done on so many, and working on this with maybe Micah and Shane or anybody else that had concerns, and then bringing it back, also adding that language that was mentioned, that this is something that has to be specifically adopted by the local jurisdiction, into the charging language of this section, and then I would be in support. So if for everybody's comfortable with that, I would be in favor of tabling this for now.
And I just want to tell you, in the 2017, there are type C units. So when you adopt A117.1, right, that gets you to the ANSI, right, you are going to have type C units. It's in the code, in the standard. So the question comes up, when do you use type C units? So basically you're going to have something in the standard, and then where in the code does it tell you to use type C units right now? Nothing. So,
Hoyt, if I may back us up, and forgive my inexperience with this, where is the standard reference again? in the IBC for even the type A and B?
No. Oh, that's in chapter 11.
Chapter
It'd be in
11,
chapter
okay.
11. Yeah. Um, I could open it.
That's okay. I see it
okay.
now, accessibility, but okay. While you're doing that, Richard, please.
Hi, Richard Williams. Yeah, Hoyt, and I think we're all on the same page in terms of knowing that the provisions are laid out in A117. What we're trying to figure out is providing scoping, to those provisions. And so just want to make that clear. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's why we're trying to add this in there. It's in the appendix to get the type C that a local jurisdiction can adopt.
Yeah, no, I know.
Because it is,
but
yeah.
But the type C provisions are it's known that those are in A117. It's the discussion before us is how to get there and if and how to get there.
That's correct. How to get there. That's exactly right.
Okay, and the reason I was asking is I just want to make sure I understand. I'm not going to vote on this tag, but why is this only for local adoption? What concerns me is not the technical side or why we would do the accessibility, and why isn't it statewide inclusion so that jurisdictions don't. I really fear that we have to be careful on House Bill 1110 on creating any. I get the unintended consequence. I also understand unintended weapons for jurisdictions to potentially use and create some differential between jurisdictions. So Tim, I'll go ahead, Tim, whatever your comment is. Yeah.
I was just going to speak to that. I think right now, currently the IBC, all of its scoping is in an effort to comply with the Fair Housing Act. These are not required by the Fair Housing Act. So therefore, that's where there's no federal mandate or anything like that. I understand the concern of the proponent. But if you have a jurisdiction that currently is in a position where, for cottage developments, they don't want to provide a type C, then by putting in the appendix, they don't have to, and it would still be in compliance with all federal standards. So this just gives jurisdictions that want to the ability to exceed what those minimum fair housing standards are by basically putting in some accessible units that are not really accessible, but just allow access mostly.
Okay. Right.
I want to add on that on the fair housing unit. They're not even up to the code we're using right now in the ANSI. They're still back in the old code. So the Fair Housing Act on that committee they're not even in. What are we at right now? They're back on the 2009 or whatever. They're not even at the same level. They're talking about that now. So the Fair Housing Act, any Fair Housing Act is not meeting the ANSI that we have adopted already. I'm not talking about 2017. So just FYI, they're back. I think the 2006. They're not on the 2009 at all. Whatever the number is. Rich, you would probably you're on that committee too. You're in there talking to the fair housing stuff. They're way behind on that. So.
Okay.
Because that has to go to legislation. That legislation by the federal government.
Okay. Well, what's the will of the tag here, Tim? I don't know if that was a formal motion, was it, table?
I'm happy to make that now. I'll make a motion to table this and allow the proponent to work on it and come back.
Okay.
Second. That's
Yeah.
Mike.
Okay, so then you got the second. What direction do you want to work on it? Specifically.
Specifically in regards to the last section, Q103, type C visible units and the scoping provided to better define the difference between site and development. Also specifically add the other instructions at the top of this in the charging language that this is an optional appendix and can only be enforced if the local jurisdiction adopts it at their local ordinance.
But that's already in all appendix. I mean, why do you have to add that up at the top for that? That's all appendixes in the code.
Okay. Okay, well, we do have a motion and a second to table. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, with that, then we'll table petition 003. Okay, good discussion, Roger.
Yeah, if I may, Todd, going back to agenda item 10, I believe it is, proposal number 126.
Yep.
I took the time to go through, that was the Uniform Plumbing Code references. I took the time while this discussion was happening to go through my version of the 2024 IBC. And there are 3 references that I think need to be checked that I identified as not necessarily either correct or there was not a reference. I can spell them out or I can just send this information to Dustin. I think it is editorial. The intent is to, make sure that all the references to the Uniform Plumbing Code are modified. So I don't know how you want to handle it. I just want everybody to know I did find 3 potential issues.
Okay, Tim?
I would just say that theoretically that would be something caught for an errata then, if I'm not mistaken, because we have a situation where basically the uniform code is telling us that the IPC is referenced in all these sections. And we're just saying to use the UPC in those sections versus the IPC. So, not that we can't change it and catch the errata ahead of time, but theoretically that would be caught in another way too.
Well, I agree, Tim, and I think that through this whole process, the final CR 102, CR 103, there will be editorial updates, and that was why, the tag has sent it along. If everybody's okay, I will just send these 3 comments to Dustin as they're finalizing things. They can confirm that editorial they're correct.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes sense. Let Dustin and team think about that a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, we're more than halfway through, so is everyone up for a 5-minute break? Okay, 2:40, let's say 2:48. Thank you.
It's good.
Okay. I guess we better do a quick roll.
Yes. All righty, Todd Bayreuther.
Here.
Roger Haringa.
Here.
Joe Mayo.
Here.
Che Fortaleza was not present earlier. Don't see them online now. Tim Woodard.
Here.
Steve Belzak said he'd be back at 3, and I don't see him online at the moment. Lance Dahl.
Here.
Hoyt Jeter. Come back. Todd Sullivan was not here earlier. Not seeing them online now. Bill Mybush.
Present.
Thank you. Brian Horseman was not present earlier. Don't see them online now. Josh Mergens.
Present.
Thank you. Trent Tinney was not present earlier. Not seeing them online now.
Oh, I'm here. This is Hoyt. If you called me, I'm sorry. I was
Okay.
so I got a call. I was just talking to someone, so I just want to let you know.
Thank you. Michael Shaw was not here earlier. Not seeing them online now. Brett Conway.
Present.
Thank you. Michael Barth.
Here.
Leah Summer was not here earlier, not online now. Paul Clark.
Here.
Thank you. And Andy Leonto.
Present.
Thank you. And we are good to go with 10 of our 8 required seats.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. So our previous action on agenda item, that did we technically defer both 13 and 14, the single exit and the embodied greenhouse gas, to the future?
Let me double check my note here. I don't know if we defer. So 14 is tabled to the 21st and 13 is tabled to the 21st.
Okay, thank you. So that puts us at 15 now. This is petition 068 revision 1. Does this imply that we're through the first, let's call them first readings of all the other proposals then, if we're circling back on one?
We are not. I and just noted earlier when we started doing the agenda, I had noticed that I had made a mistake in drafting here. There's about 7 or 8 proposals that are not on here that we haven't heard yet, but we are circling back to ones that we've already heard now with this agenda item. So if we get through what we have here, other business, my intent to go back to the ones we didn't get to.
Okay, just a question. Thank you. Okay, so with that, I think Patrick, you're going to lead, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. For the record, this is Patrick Hanks, the Building Industry Association of Washington, and the proponent of this petition. So it's been a little bit since we've talked about the first one. I took the feedback from the tag and looked deeper at the statute and tried to come up with a revision that complied with the law while also reducing the economic impact of the current code as much as possible. And so what I came up with is to reduce the number of EV-ready parking spaces for all other Group R occupancies from 25% to 15%. That still exceeds the minimum as put in the law, which is, I believe, 10%. But it's a reduction from 25%. And then the tag, there was some additional discussion and some questions about what happened in 2021 and how they got to where they did and some other things. So I tried to do some research into that. It was not easy navigating the 2021 process and finding out where and when they did things, but I tried to provide some additional information there. It looks like Stoyan originally tried making a proposal that was going to comply with the law, and then there was another proposal from the public, and the tag ended up kind of meshing them together. And for the most part, it stayed close to what the law requires, but that 25% sort of survived from the public proposal, and it increased above what the law required. And then I looked into, there was discussion about that WashDOT was supposed to make a forecasting tool, and based on my research, it looks like they have not done that yet. And there was some reporting that suggested it would be quite a challenge to implement that. Yeah, and I don't want to go through and read everything verbatim that I supplied there. So if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them regarding number 5. And then going to the economic analysis, I tried to expand on what I provided more and give some more scenarios for different apartment sizes, because I felt like 12 unit is a very conservative estimate. And as you get to larger, more parking spaces, more dwelling units, more square footage, that can change the cost impact. And so this would produce a cost savings of, let me see where my numbers are, between about 68 or 63 cents per square foot to 80 cents per square foot, or $423 per dwelling unit to about $564 per dwelling unit. So it's a per square foot, it seems like a small cost, but these things add up. And then what I thought was very interesting to note is in the life cycle cost analysis that my proposal reduces the CO2e emissions over the life cycle. So I think that's basic summary. I tried including the methodology I use since the council doesn't have a standardized methodology for what unit sizes or total square footage to use. If there's any questions from the tag, I'm happy to answer them.
Patrick, what can you go a little deeper on what in the life cycle cost, what the baseline L1 and L2, what they are?
Yeah, so the baseline is the current code. So that'd be the 25% have EV ready or chargers. The only consistent cost, I basically just looked at the cost of the chargers. I couldn't, and that's what pertains most to the life cycle cost analysis. The Alt1 is my proposal, and the Alt2 isn't used typically in how the State Building Code Council has us use the forms. So it basically is just going to mirror the baseline. So you can just ignore the Alt2 and you look at the baseline versus the proposal, which is Alt1. And then it shows that the Alt1 or the proposal produces better emissions over the life cycle and energy consumption.
Go ahead, Hoyt.
Yeah, what I can see your idea about reducing the cost, but any reduction in this would be a reduction in cost, going from the 25 to 20 or whatever. So I do agree with that. But the more and more areas that are being done, really all this is EV ready, right? Number of EV ready parking spaces. EV is becoming more and more dominant. You see more and more on the cars. Me personally, I had the first Leaf in the state of Washington a long time ago.
Wow.
And we leased it, so and then turned it back. I loved it, but the one thing I don't see any other rationale why. I mean, I see driving around now almost everywhere I go and everything, electrical vehicles, Teslas, all those kind of things. It seems like now the building code should maintain that 25% of the total parking, because I don't see a reason why you would want to. I didn't see there in your reason statements, besides you're saying the cost, which is the only reason you have to not keep it at the rate that it is right now. So, and I'm seeing more and more places where people can't charge their cars because they don't have enough for especially our occupancies. So.
Wait,
did you hear me that? Sorry, I'm in an office.
Yeah, Patrick, is there any rebuttal before I ask Roger?
Sure. Thank you for that, Hoyt. Yeah, I included it in the document. I forgot to talk about it here. I did look at EV adoption rates, and while I agree with you, anecdotally, when you drive around, especially if you're in the Seattle metro area, you're going to see more EV vehicles. But I looked at adoption rates around the state, and they can vary pretty wildly. There's some counties where it's less than 1% adoption rate. And then if you look at the total fleet, the adoption rates, I think, normally look at the monthly rate of adoption. If you look at the total fleet, all of the private, passenger vehicles in the state, EVs are a very small fraction. So it's still internal combustion engines are the lion's share of the fleet in the state. And while yes, it's important to have more EV chargers, and the law has that. And I feel like even with my proposal, adoption rates would have to go up drastically to meet the amount of chargers that would be available. And there's still also all of the chargers that are going in at businesses, at shopping centers, at grocery stores, and all the charging stations going in. So I don't think it's necessary to have every single, parking space have an EV charger, or even in a larger complex, it's not going to be necessary for every dwelling unit to have their own dedicated charger. because it kind of depends on the situation. If somebody's in an area where they're using the full charge of their vehicle every single day, they might need to have a dedicated charger. But for a lot of use cases throughout the state, people aren't going to be using the whole battery capacity in one day, so they can share chargers in their apartments, parking lot. There'll be a lot of chargers there, even at 15%, and then they'll have chargers at their work. There'll be chargers at the grocery store. There'll be charging stations they can go to. So, I kind of looked at it like we don't require every apartment complex to have a gas fueling station. You can go to the fueling station and fill up. EV is obviously a little bit different because it can take a bit of time, but I think even with my proposal, there's going to be a lot of EV ready parking spaces throughout their community that they can utilize. And then looking at, it's a statewide code, it's supposed to be a minimum, and the Building Code Council is supposed to reduce unnecessary requirements where they can. There's some counties where the adoption rates are just so low and there's not a lot of EV cars. So the current 25% is just so excessive compared to what they need. And I thought, that creates unused material, and it can be waste if it's not going to use. So if possible, to lower that to where it kind of meets where the market's at today. And then in future code cycles, we can look at as the market changes and see a little bit of idea of, battery capacity can also go up. So people might not need to charge as much. There's all things that can happen over the life cycle of building. And I don't think it's necessary to have, a 1-to-1 rate of EV ready to dwelling units for apartment complexes.
Okay. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, so there are a number of things. So the way I understand it is the RCW says 10% or 15%, I don't remember, 10%, I think. The 2021 Washington State Building Code, there was a proposal that went through our whole process, public comment, voted on by the TAG, CR 102, which allowed public comment, voted on by the full Building Code Council that changed that to 25%. So I don't believe that the RCW, if we go through our proposals, we can go above and beyond what the RCW says. So I don't think that's an issue. I certainly appreciate the concern about using, materials, not putting materials into buildings if we don't need them. I have a question about proposal number 122, which is next on our agenda. And I have looked at it several times. My understanding of 122 is basically a competing proposal that would change the 25% to 40%. And I may be wrong there, that 122 may talk about other issues, but as I look at it, the two proposals are the same. It's just we're voting on whether that should be 15%, 25%, or 40%. So my actual suggestion is that we, as a TAG, potentially, if I'm correct about proposal number 122, I would actually suggest that the TAG forward both proposals on to the full state Building Code Council. And, on the technical merits, I don't know that this is a technical question. What we are talking about is should the limit be 10%, 15%, 25%, or 40%? I think that should be brought up to the full Building Code Council, open for public comment, and then a decision made. So I think on the technical basis, Patrick, you've provided a lot of the information that we asked for. So I'm going to ask about 122. Am I incorrect that basically is all that proposal 122 says? And if so, then I'm going to just basically suggest that we, as a tag, forward both of these on for further consideration by full council, public comment, etc.
Okay. And I think we could also decide as a tag we want to hear 122 today first before we take any action on either, but I understand what you're saying, Roger. Hoyt?
Yeah, sorry, it took me a second to click on. I'm gonna vote against this, just to let you know, for my reason is the justification to me when I read it doesn't really justify lowering it. It was approved at 25%. We've been using it. And I don't see why, besides that, they're talking about the cost. Yeah, if you lower it to any amount, you could lower the cost, but I didn't see any technical reasons besides what the cost is, and I do believe there's more and more EV stalls out there, and really this is EV ready. This isn't actually installing EV, and it's a lot more expensive that we've had, where you have to tear up the parking lot, you got to put all that stuff in. This is just putting in the systems to be able to, in the future, to be able to use it. And a lot of that deals with here in Tacoma, we found out from the builders that are building here, is putting in the conduits, doing things like that, and it's not that much of a cost to have it EV ready. This is different from EV complete for everything. So I'm not in favor of reducing it to what it already states. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Hoyt. Kathleen?
Thank you very much. Kathleen Petrie, King County. I was the proponent back in the last code cycle that brought the merged portion with Stoyan together. And so it was the 25% EV ready that we brought to the table in addition to the installed charger percentages. And the EV ready and installed chargers were based on a tremendous amount of research that was done both independently and with consultant support. And so considering that Washington State is a zero emission state, combustion engine vehicles won't be sold new after 2035 models. We don't have the infrastructure. And, as EVs are becoming more prominent, the realities of that lack of infrastructure are very, very prevalent. And so I would support the increase. Actually, there are a lot of reports now that are saying 100% EV ready is actually the appropriate percentage, which can be done through vehicle load management with reduced costs. British Columbia, I think there are 13 jurisdictions there that are 100%. Climate Solutions, one of our local sustainable companies that tracks this, has been identifying and is suggesting 100% is appropriate. Cal Green has switched to 40% EV ready. San Jose is at 90%. Santa Monica, 50%. Chicago, 100% EV ready. And King County has been EV ready for the last 2 code cycles. So 25%. And so we just really encourage the increase and the focus on the increase amount so that we do have the infrastructure coming forth. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen. Micah?
Hot topic. I won't talk long, but I was involved in the previous discussions for sure. This was a kind of a tough number. When I voted for this, I originally voted against it, but voted for a whole package moving forward. I do believe that the table is beneficial, but looking at the percentages, there is no clear answer on where it should lie. To Roger's point, the bill says 10% and another section says 20%, but then also in section 4.3a, it says the rules, and I believe Patrick included this in the proposal down below, that the rules adopted under that section must exceed the minimum specific requirements. So the 10% doesn't exceed. The only part of that table that exceeds, in my opinion, the legislation is the 25% number. So if you reduce that to 15%, you still might be exceeding. So again, I'm not going anywhere with the numbers. That's I agree with Roger, probably for the full council to decide on the percentage where it lands. But please be aware that this was driven by legislation twice. There was an original legislation, and I believe it was within a year later they came back and modified the legislation again, and we had to come back in and modify this language one more time. So when you look at the language and the requirements in the table, the titles across the occupancy type, or the occupancy, excuse me, where it says number of EV charging stations, EV ready parking, those all have coordinating definitions that I think may be beneficial to add to the proposals for folks to not get confused about which one of those are which. They are specific. EV ready is a parking space provided with a receptacle outlet allowing charging of electric vehicles. That's not a charging station. That's not capacity in the panel. That's an actual outlet. So again, there's different definitions with different percentages here. I think it'd be real important to add to this. I appreciate, Patrick, you coming in with this proposal and all the research and cost data, but this was a tough one to come to. There was a lot of negotiation on this one back and forth, and hopefully we can come to some solution this time as well. Thanks.
I recognize myself because I want to make a comment. So when we're considering these types of proposals, so thank you, Patrick. I'm just going to share my screen real quickly. In energy efficiency and power planning, so forth, in our region, we have the benefit of having mandated Northwest Power and Conservation Council power plants. And so in that, there's a lot of forecasting. So Patrick, I appreciate bringing forward what our current adoption rates are, but we also have to align with forecasting. And whatever model it is, I'm removing our conversation from the building code for a second, because when we do power and conservation planning, we have the power plans and all of the robust data that goes into that. And then coming back to the any proposal, whether it's this one or the next one, I think we have to have a discussion and make the argument that somehow we're making a reduction in EV vehicles and in how it's being planned for our region. And I just show one graph, and I know it's out of context for if you're not familiar with the power plans, but the yellow would have to be decreasing, in my opinion, to start to consider reductions. Now, it's possible, like Mike is saying, our baseline's wrong where we are now, that it's the wrong number. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 100, whatever. But this is the kind of discussion and argument and data I think we should be looking at as forecasting, not necessarily current adoption rates. Current adoption rates might be relevant to how many spots you have now, but in buildings that are 30 to 50 to 60, 100 years, that's a different argument. So again, I know that was a pro, well, like, con to the current proposal here, but I just want to kind of raise the bar on that discussion. So thank you. Now I'll go back to chairing and go to Patrick.
Yeah, to respond to Hoyt's point again, I'll bring up again that I talk about in my proposal, and I've talked about today, the arguments for reducing it. Number one, it's going to take a significant chunk of time for EV adoption to get to the point where it can even meet the demand for my 15%, my proposal, across statewide. Now, in places like King County, that might be different, but there are counties where having this much infrastructure is wasteful when they're not going to use it. They may not need it. And then that gets back to the purpose of the State Building Code Council in RCW 1927-020, subsection 4, which is to reduce unnecessary restrictions. And yes, the RCW for EV charging says, you have to have this language and you have to exceed it. 15% is exceeding it in the same way that 25% is exceeding it, not to the same amount, but it's exceeding it in the same way. So if 15% doesn't qualify for that statute, then 25% doesn't either. I have some questions for the other proposals if you're hearing them at the same time, because I thought that it was discussed that they need to supply life cycle cost analysis and hard estimates of the cost per dwelling unit and square foot. I thought that was discussed at the last tag meeting, and they have not been revised. And that gets back to whether proposals are complete. some issues there. I strongly encourage the council to, or the tag to consider this proposal and pushing it forward, because it reduces an unnecessary regulation. What I'm hearing from people involved in building units and projects that have to comply with this is they're putting in not because there's demand for it, not because the renters need it, not because the tenants need it, not because they want it. It's just because they have to. There's not a demand for it across the state. So thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Ross Freeman, EV Program Manager with King County. Sorry I joined late, but good timing in the queue here. To respond to the comment quite a while ago now, yes, our first proposal is essentially an alternate version of what Patrick is proposing, where we are suggesting raising the same percentage. So in that sense, we'd be happy to forward along both if that was the tag's decision to the full council. Just responding, I guess, a little bit to the waste of assets or materials. I guess we tend to look at it on the flip side that buildings today should be lasting 50 or more years, and while it is a small incremental cost to add in EV ready infrastructure measures at construction, it's just so much cheaper than retrofitting those later. So we feel like it's, for a building that's lasting 50, 60 years, much better to do it now versus a 3x, 4x cost increase in the future. So that's one piece. Yeah, I will mention too, Patrick brought this up. We did send along our revised language this morning. I noticed it didn't get into the published agenda, so we have that information available. It might be in one of the mailboxes, and I can screen share that. We actually tried to get into the LCCA tool a number of times last 2 weeks. We can't make that link work. We can't get to it. So we did request a few weeks ago to get a copy sent along as an attachment or some other way to get that spreadsheet, but we haven't heard back yet. So in the absence of actually having hands on that tool, which for some reason we cannot download, even outside of our VPN, we have come with additional hard cost info, just comparing the 3x to 4x savings of installing EV ready now versus at time of construction. So that's essentially the difference in our first proposal. And in the second proposal, when we get there, we've brought additional hard cost info on the EV capable scenario. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Okay, Roger.
Yeah, I'm going to, I appreciate and completely agree with the suggestion of including the definitions of EV charging, EV ready, and EV capable parking spaces. And I would even suggest, if this goes on to the full building code council, to have, if somebody, either of the proponents could have a diagram so we could actually understand what those are, because as a structural engineer, I don't get into EV charging stations very often, but I understand code language. I have a relatively good understanding of it, but not all members of the council are necessarily have that experience. So it is very difficult to understand exactly what those three look like. So that would be very helpful. I do think that additional costing information would be helpful for the full council. And I still, I have a difficult time going backwards, and particularly the forecasting information that Todd showed. And I also remind everybody, this is the 2024 IBC we're talking about, but it won't be adopted till the end of 2026. So you're really talking about what's the rate for buildings that are built in 2027, 2028. So we've got a 3-year, we're talking about this code coming into effect in 3 years from now. And that's only, if my math, I try not to do math in my head, but is that only 7 years ahead of when no, gas powered cars are going to be sold anymore in the state. So I have a hard time going backwards. But again, I go back to it is a challenging question. I really think that it should be pushed up to the full council. I'm curious to investigate the shall exceed language, because does that mean that the number of EV charging stations should be increased to 15%? So we are exceeding it, and I don't know that. But I want to understand that and come to the right decision. So just additional comments. And again, as a state building code council member, it's a difficult, challenging question to ask. The 25% did go through the whole process last time. I struggle going backwards, but I really think that, again, the technical aspect of this, both proposals, and potentially even proposal 135, although I'm not sure if that doesn't have more impact. But the technical proposal is okay. We're changing a number one way or the other, and that's the technical aspects. I think then the understanding the differences between those two and pushing it up to the full building code council is the right thing for the tag to do.
I'm going to recognize myself one more time here, because I want to emphasize, I'm not trying to make the argument, but if we move these forward, the council needs more forecasting data for or against this. And I don't care what model it is, but this is, again, back to the power planning. And you'll see when this was modeled in 2020, this is the light duty vehicle projections for our region. The blue line's the reference case, and the red is the high electric case. So these are just new sales, but you can see why numbers like 15, 20, 25, 30, that's got to be debated by this tag and the council of then what does that mean in our building codes for these parking stalls. But this is why, now that this is opened up, we need to talk about forecasting. And I'll back down there. Thank you. So now I need to recognize Patrick. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh. I was wondering if my internet connection cut out.
No, that was me not balancing this balance between. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the forecasting tool that is supplied by the law that creates or by the bill that created this code language they haven't made it yet. It doesn't exist. It's not there. And there's no directive to the SBC. It's not like the energy code where you say, here's your target and you need to make incremental progress. There's no requirement for that. And the feedback that I'm getting from our members that are, and the folks that are involved in constructing multifamily residential units, is the current requirement is unnecessary. And that's the qualitative feedback from builders, is it's not necessary. Now I get it for King County. It might be, completely apropos, and they're very closely going to get to that number because adoption rates are much higher. But when you look at the statewide standard, there's counties that their adoption rates are going to have to go up, by more than a ton to even get to what my proposal will be. And even when the 2030 timeline goes into effect for new prohibition on new ICE vehicles being sold, there's still used vehicles. Certain used vehicles will still be allowed to be sold. So even when that deadline hits, the market is still going to lag, is because people tend to prefer used vehicles over new vehicles. So you have to consider that. And I think qualitatively you can look at the forecasting, but the tool that WashDOT was supposed to make as part of the bill in accordance with the section that made this language, it's not ready yet. They haven't made it. So the official tool that should be there isn't there yet. Just FYI.
But Patrick, on that question, and I'm just going to jump in here, is there anything in statute that then prevents us from going through the rulemaking process once this is proposed? That tool may not be available. Now we have to do technical rulemaking as a state, and what prevents us from then using tools we need to do that?
I don't think anything, but it's just, I'm just saying the official tool that's supposed to be there from WashDOT for this very purpose, is not, they haven't been able to make it yet, even though it's been a few years. So if the council wants to determine what other methodology they want to use, that's up to them. But I think if you're looking at, you have to keep in mind that the official tool that's supposed to be there isn't there for this purpose. Not saying that you can't look at other forecasting. There's the state has lots of data on EV adoption rates and the fleet.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So technically we're still questioning and commenting here. We haven't made a motion. Is there a motion by the tag? Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to make a motion, but okay.
Yep, that's what I'm asking, please.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to not approve this, to take it to full council.
Okay, so again, I'll jump in just like the previous one. This is a revision. It's as long as the tag understands that we haven't done a motion in the affirmative yet. If the tag doesn't want to do that, that's the prerogative of the tag, but that was my proposal, to do anything in the affirmative first. Make sure there's a proper rebuttal by the proponent and then go to denial. But
yeah, I would say not to forward this is Hoyt again, to not approve this, to move to full council, because the justification is only for costs, and they haven't shown why the 25% that is already adopted needs to be reduced lower for any other reason than the cost. And that, and to me, is not a valid reason right now to reduce it what's already acceptable in our state code right now. The justification is not there.
Go ahead, Patrick, before I clarify what that was a motion in a second, but go ahead.
Yeah, Dustin, do you know the reference that I'm talking about can you scroll down to where I talk about the EV adoption rates? Let's just pull it up. This is the third time. Yeah, I think you scroll past it right there. Yeah, can you, so there's sources there. There is like Yakima County, the current monthly adoption rates for EV is 0.7%. And when you're looking at the number of EV chargers, I think we have to consider not just the ones going to residential units, but we have requirements for commercial spaces, places of work, charging stations. There's also tons of incentives out there that are increasing charging stations. So there's already a lot of infrastructure out there. That infrastructure is going to continue to expand now that this code's into effect and moving forward. And the current adoption rates aren't even where my proposal would be at. So my argument is, yes, it's the point of, it's the statutory charging state or charging language for the council is to reduce unnecessary regulation. That's the cost part. But then also adoption rates are not where the current language is. It's still not where my proposal is. And there is still time in the cycles ahead to adjust as the market continues to adapt and technology continues to change without increasing that cost anymore. And for some of these counties, the adoption rates would have to go up magnitudes of amount in a very short period of time to even get to where my proposal's at, let alone, code cycles 3, 6, 9 years from now, you may increase this. So there's the cost component, but there's also adoption rates are not where the current requirement is, and it's going to take some time for it to even get up to my proposal.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Roger,
I have a question for Patrick about exactly the highlighted number there. That is a monthly adoption rate for Yakima County is 0.7%. So yes. My question to you is, in a 12-month period, is that whatever 0.7 times 12 is 7, 8%, 9% on an annual basis?
I don't know the annual number off the top of my head, but that link above it goes to the total fleet numbers.
Okay. I just would, again, I want to understand, first off, we do need to account for, there needs to be some projection aspect in this, in my mind, anyway, my opinion, So if I'm starting to digest numbers, I just want to make sure I understand the numbers. And if Yakima County has an annual adoption rate of, if my math is right, and that is 8 or 9%, that's a different scenario than 0.7. So I just want to make sure we're looking at monthly versus annual. And so I'll investigate that. I appreciate you including that, that link there. So
the state data goes by monthly. Otherwise I would have used annually. That's just what I found.
Yeah.
And then if you also, they make it hard because they don't easily show it to compare. But if you look at the total number of EV vehicles in the state compared to the total number of all vehicles, including ICE, EV is just a fraction of the whole there. And the market will probably change going forward, but I feel like there's just a large disconnect between where the market is right now and where the requirement is right now. And there's still lots of time to adjust as the market adjusts moving forward while still lowering the cost.
Okay, White?
Yeah, I just want to add, we're building the international building code, or the stuff that we're adopting, is not a short cycle, it's a long cycle. And that long cycle can't look at a short period of time. So I just still don't agree reducing it based on the rationale. Do I agree it probably costs more? Do I agree that other places in the state probably right now may not use it? That's probably true. But I also see from the short period of time that these electric cars have been in there, they're traveling farther, they're going farther, people need to use them. People are using them more. Accessibility cars are being built like this. By the time this gets adopted, I still don't see the reason to reduce it down. And we should keep it where it's already. So hopefully, I just wanted to give that 2 cents. It doesn't seem the rationale that they're talking about here, all I see is cost, not as much as the cost to just reduce it. And you could do that with anything in the code. To reduce anything you reduce by a percentage would reduce the cost. So I don't think that's a valid reason.
Okay. I think we are deliberating with half a motion on the table, but Tim, go ahead.
I just want to go back to what Roger mentioned earlier about the possibility of sending both of these up to the full council. In my opinion, when I look at what the tag is kind of tasked with to do, this goes beyond a technical conversation. This is a conversation about where Washington wants to be for the future, based on those forecasts, and or if we want to go back from where we are currently. Technically, I believe from what I'm seeing, the proponent has met the, let's say, burden of proof to say that this is a technical code provision, and there's no reason that we shouldn't approve it. So if we decided to not approve this one, then I feel like we're in the same point with the next one, or 122, is we would have to not approve that one either, because there's not going to be a technical merit except for projections, which is not, in my opinion, outside of the technical, this tags conversation. That conversation should be done at the full council. So I think I wouldn't be in favor of voting for the current motion on the table, but I am in favor of pushing both of these proposals onto the State Building Code Council and letting them weigh kind of where they want the state to be for the future.
Okay, thank you, Tim. I do personally have concerns about using the heavy hammer of denial under the new statute, but so I do share that concern. Go ahead, Micah.
Thanks, Tim. I agree with you on that. And Todd not shutting it down. And thanks, Patrick, for putting this together, and King County for putting theirs together. I think looking at the technical, that we should be evaluating, or you should, as the tag. I'm on the tag. I say we, but not me. Evaluating these proposals in relation to the legislation. Maybe we did get the numbers incorrect, the percentages incorrect. Maybe they should be exactly what the legislation says for new buildings. And then maybe in exceeding the requirements of that legislation, the tag should look at, or a proponent should look at, exceeding those regulations by incorporating something in existing buildings. I know Patrick's going to probably scream at me about that, but I don't disagree with Patrick's proposal here. Maybe we need to compare it technically to the legislation and its requirements for new buildings and not put all the issue on new buildings alone. There's going to be a lot of existing structures that don't have EV infrastructure that maybe can pick up those percentages where you're talking about the adoption rates here and things like that are going to end up being plugged in. They're not going to be all plugged in at new buildings. So again, that's probably the technical review we need to do is actual percentages based on the legislation in correlation with this proposed change, just like we did when we originally adopted these last cycle. Thanks.
Thank you, Micah. Roger.
So this is probably meant for the discussion later on in the full state building code council, but Micah reminded me that if we're going to start looking at adoption rates, we also would need to figure out the percentage of new buildings to overall buildings, because there are that's a difficult mathematical calculation to have. But if you look at the full building stock in the state compared to the new buildings and start looking at the EV numbers for just the new buildings, and now you're at that 0.7, I think that those lower rates may very well be appropriate. So anyway, I guess I wanted to get that out, and if I go back and look at the recording, I can remind myself of the whole discussion that we had. So
Roger, I'll weigh in here. It is a difficult analysis, but it is already done for us. And I'll keep reminding that our power plan is exactly this, that the surveys, the statistically valid surveys and data that goes into those modeling exercises that goes on for 3 or 4 year cycles is done in our region. And the EV adoption, the generation adoption, the demolition rates on buildings, the types of heating sources in residential and commercial, all of this data is available to us. And I would ask that someone brings this forward and makes a technical argument on those adoption rates now that these two proposals are opening this up. And I think it is important that this is done. We have to address this as rulemaking, because it's probably more appropriate to have that technical discussion here rather than in Olympia. And that's not that's again not a power versus authority discussion there. That's the technical place, that where's the most appropriate place in the state to have this kind of discussion. So okay, with that, bringing it back to the tag, Brett, you have half a motion on here. What do we want to do with this? I call it half a motion because I wasn't sure if that was a motion for denial, or if someone wants to.
I was going to say point of order, Todd. I believe there was a motion, but we did not hear a second yet.
I think that technically how it could be interpreted, yes. So what does the tag want to do? Is there a second to that, or do you want to take a different route?
That was my motion, right? That says a motion to not move it on to the.
I think technically, Brett, if I remember correctly, you made a motion to deny. No,
that was Hoyt.
Yeah, it was me. So I made a motion to not move this on to the state and leave it at the 25.
Okay, so there's a motion to, I'll rephrase that, to deny. Is there a second? Okay, if there's not a second, that motion fails. Is there a second motion, a different motion?
This is Tim. My motion would be to send this on to the full council for consideration. That motion, I would like to also include 122. But I think maybe we need to hear that first. That might just be a clarification from Dustin that we need.
Do we want, okay.
I'll just stick with this one for now then. I'll just vote to send this on to the full council.
Okay. Is there a second?
Michael Barth, I'll second that. If for no other reason, I believe if the other one's going to move forward for discussion, I believe this should as well. And I would hate to kick this out because this should be part of that same discussion. I have other comments, but I'll wait for discussion, I guess.
Okay, well, I think we're into that deliberation now. So there's a motion and a second to recommend approval by the full council. So now we can, as a take, and discuss.
Well, again, Mike Barth, this is one of those that I think Micah hit it on the head. This really is it's a political decision, not a technical decision. I think my opinions on here are, if we look at what are we doing with the code, this is a minimum code. We argue to get life safety things in here. We argue to get buildings safer for people and to get exiting safer for people. I think if we're doing things like increasing the charging for a future potential use, I think we're exceeding the bounds of what a minimum code is intended to be. And I, my personal opinion is we often get the cart before the horse when it comes to this. I'm fully supportive of EVs and going that way. However, I do have a lot of difficulty as a nation when we're reading all this, that our electric delivery infrastructure isn't there for people. If everybody got a charger, it would cripple our infrastructure. And the other part, and I know it's probably not a popular opinion, but I struggle with the fact that this country still burns coal and natural gas to generate electricity. And I know nobody wants to talk about that here, but that's the reality of where we're going with EVs. If the country is still burning coal, then it doesn't make sense for us all to drive EVs. That's where our efforts need to be to fix our nation's infrastructure, in my opinion. I think we need to focus on generating clean electricity. And for this argument to be in the code as technical, and well, are there technical merits? Is it going to cost more? It's more difficult for me to accept that. So, in this case, normally I would say in this particular proposal, I normally would not support it because I don't think we should go backwards. We do have the 10% requirement. We've got the 25% for EV ready. And my personal opinion is we should be making more EV capable, not necessarily EV ready. But I think we have numbers that have been battled over the years, and consensus has been these are good numbers, and we should go with that. So my opinion is it would be to stick with that, let that work. Let's keep pushing that. Let's not go backwards. But on the other hand, I would be opposed to the other proposals that increase that requirement because I don't think we're ready for it. I don't think it's there. And again, we take that argument, this is a minimum code. There is nothing in the code that prohibits building owners and developers from increasing this and putting in more if they see a need. If their customers are saying, hey, we don't have enough charging spaces for our clients, then they're going to put those in. And it doesn't need to be a minimum in the code for that to happen. If the market wants that, if developers, property owners, apartment owners, if they have a need for it, then that's the time to respond and get them in. And that doesn't need a minimum code to force it across the whole state. There have also been a lot of other arguments, and I know King County is driving this. King County has a much higher need for it. That makes sense to have local amendments for the jurisdictions like King County to increase it. And I think that's where it should be increased, is in places that have already experienced the need and show the need. But to take these and apply them across the entire state, which is the whole purpose of a state amendment, is pushing something that's potentially not needed or not needed yet. I'll agree to that much. Not needed yet on the broad scale, and it does increase costs. And if developers want to have the potential in the future of not digging up parking spaces, they always have the option of throwing the conduit in the ground and covering it up without the need to have, be forced to do it when it may be 10, 15, 20, 30 years before the need is there. So I know that's, didn't mean to jump on my soapbox there, but and I know it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I just think it gets down to putting the cart before the horse. So in my opinion, yes, I think we should move this one forward if we're going to move the other two forward. Otherwise, in my perfect world scenario, I would think all of them should die and we move forward with what we have. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Quick.
Yeah, I just want to say we do this with accessibility. There's other parts of the codes where they have the percentages on this. In all the arguments that I have, I haven't heard yet why we need to go backwards on this. I know about the other proposal where it says 40%. That's one I'm right now not supporting of, but I think we should keep exactly what it says, 25% of the total parking, which is in the code that has been adopted, has been worked through. The justification, the only thing I can see here, they're talking about cost, and it is, as I've said, it's EV ready. They're able to EV ready to be able to put in there. We've been using it. It can be done. And I disagree. It was accepted before and got passed. The rationale that they put in there doesn't make sense. And electrical charging, 5 years ago, there's more electrical cars on the road than there are. 5 years ago, there's less. And as time goes on, there's more being produced. So I think as a future code, they have not given the rationale besides the cost that they need to reduce it back that was already adopted before. So I want to stick on that statement, and I hope we don't bring it back. And you're talking about the other one, the 40%. That was one I'm not ready for voting for that one. That's the one I would disagree with right now. I do want to say I think it's incorrect for us to go backwards. So.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Josh.
Yeah, so a lot of the conversation has kind of been centering around what the authority of the tag is, or what the is not the authority, but the charge of the tag, I should say, and what we're recommending to the council. And as somebody who's new to the tag, it's raising some interesting questions to me. And I don't know if we can, if we have consensus on exactly what that charge is, because I'm hearing a lot of great points about how this should move forward. And I agree with the argument that this is not necessarily something of a technical issue to determine what the state's goals would be. But what I want to make sure of is I don't know if anyone's actually answered if there is a process by which we can say, hey, we've got all of these proposals, we've evaluated them for our charge, and we find that this is outside of our scope, so we're recommending all of these to be brought to the full council for consideration as opposed to approval. Are there options for that? Is there a mechanism by which we can say, hey, we're passing this along because this may not be within our purview, or is this within our purview? I think all those questions are really important on this decision.
Yeah, I like
Josh,
that.
I'll say that.
I like that.
Yeah, okay. Josh, I will say before I recognize Tim here that in my opinion, the tag are the subject matter experts, right? So you are representing part of the population that has a stake in these subjects. And I think I would ask, from a process standpoint, we have 3 proposals addressing the same section. We could hear each one of them. Again, this isn't the final passage of everything moving forward. We still would have opportunity after we go through all 3 proposals and debate them individually to say maybe they do need to come into one proposal, and we give a recommendation, because what I do fear here is that we pass 2 or 3 of these forward without really any recommendation of what the council should do. It gets to the committee, which is a small group subset of the council, and they're just going to pass it right back down to say, put these 3 together, these 2 together, right, and make an actual recommendation. So, but I think we could get through each one individually and then circle back if at the end we say, hey, we should put a striker in and address all 3 at once. Open for any discussion on that. Tim.
The mechanism that Josh was kind of referring to, this is what I thought this was, by sending up 2 that are competing, which have valid technical merit. It allows the State Building Code Council to choose which one. Todd, you're kind of referencing that them, meaning the subcommittee within the council, would just send it back to us for an actual recommendation out of both of them. But by doing so, it never gets to the State Building Code Council. It never sits through public comment and never has the ability to be weighed in on a broader, larger level for the state to make determinations where it wants to head. So that was my concern about denying these, is we're in a position where we send up the 40% and we're kind of, saying, go with this higher number, and we're making a recommendation. I'm not making that recommendation. I'm with Hoyt. I would prefer we just stick with the 25, but we haven't really fully heard the 40. So it's my interpretation of what we're trying to accomplish here is to allow it to be heard at a larger level, to allow it to have that broader comment, and then allow the State Building Code Council, the ones that are actually appointed by the governor, to represent those different stakeholders to make that decision.
I think it's a really good point, Tim. So thank you for
that.
Right.
I want to say on that too, just real quick. I don't know if we have that option, but if we do, I'm exactly with Tim. If we approve both of these to go in and say, hey, you guys make which decision, that would be great. I'm worried that one gets approved and one's not. If that is a possibility where we could vote for both of them at the same time to move forward and say, hey, you guys decide which one you want to have, I would definitely vote for that. I always vote. That's one thing I want to be clear on. I don't like to vote for things that go backwards in the code. And that's why I would vote against the one with going from 25 to 15. So,
Dustin, are you sharing the screen? Who's sharing the screen? Can you pull up RCW 1927-540, specifically section 3A? My suggestion to everybody is that we send both proposals to the full council, and yes, it will go through the standing committee first, but send both proposals and direct the council to approve whichever proposal conforms to section 3A of RCW 1927-54, which tells us in item 2 there that for all types of residential and commercial buildings, to the extent necessary to support the anticipated levels of zero emission vehicles used that result from the zero emissions vehicle program requirements. So we are, by RCW, we are required to make some sort of a projection. And I don't think that it necessarily, I wouldn't send this back to the tag for that projection. I think, those projections can come from the proponents. I think once it gets into the public comment, can other people make different projections? Sure, but it would be published as an RS with the CR 102. It would go out for public comment. Eventually, between public comment and the full council, we will try to meet section 3A. So I think from a tag perspective, I would recommend we send both along up to the full council with the direction that we should be meeting section 3A of that RCW.
yeah, and I would vote for that. I like that if that's a possibility.
Okay. Go ahead, Brett.
Yes, I'd just like to suggest too that the proponents, and I'm also seeing it as all 3 of these proposals that that are EV topic, is that they provide the first cost for their proposals as well as the long range cost for their proposals, to include, obviously the hard costs for putting in the elements, including the electrical infrastructure costs for because EV Ready includes a 40 amp circuit going to that stall, as well as the electrical capacity increase or decrease that each of their proposals will yield. Because at times the electricity is not actually available in some sites, as to provide some additional content for the full council review.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Josh, you're next.
It just sounds like as we're all discussing some of this, and I don't know where we are in process. I believe we have a motion on the table, and I don't want to step out of line, but it seems like what we should be doing is tabling this until we can hear all the related proposals in their current and latest revised versions, so we can evaluate all of them for technical merit, and then it may be appropriate to make the recommendation to the council as Roger had laid out, saying, hey, these all meet the technical merit. This is what we're recommending you trend towards, and there's going to have to be some public comment. But I just want to make sure before we take any action that we have heard the latest and greatest version of each proposal, and I don't believe that is the case. And I suggest we would go through that, and I would love to make that motion, but again, I'm lost where we are in the process and want to do things correctly.
Oh, procedurally, yes, there's ways to do it, and I'll take any suggestion how to do that if that's the desire.
Yeah, I'll pull my motion, then.
That's the one way to do it, easiest way.
Yep, pull my motion and we could go that route.
I believe we were on Tim's motion.
Oh, let's clarify whose motion and second it was. Yes.
It was my motion to move it to the full council.
And I seconded, and I think the easiest way, if it wanted to be tabled, would be for Tim to modify his motion if he so desired.
I agree, that's the easiest. It's up to Tim.
Yeah, so I'll modify my motion then to table this until we've heard all proposals on EV parking. I think I can stop
Mike, was
there.
that your second?
And having seconded that, I would also approve the modification.
Okay, now Dustin's going to tell us what we did wrong here.
I don't think that anybody did anything wrong here, and I think the movement that's happening right now is in alignment with what I was wanting to try to speak on. We're trying to weigh the technical merits of these proposals and get something that's maybe outside of the scope of the tag to the council for consideration of some options. I was thinking that the motion maybe wouldn't be a recommendation for adoption, but a referral to the council to consider the three proposals, and maybe they should be merged and have some options for the table. I heard from Brett that they're looking for some additional information. I would ask the folks from King County. I do have your proposals. I didn't get them in time to post for the meeting. But is the information that Brett's maybe asking for those life cycle costs, or the first cost plus the long cost, is that included in the updated analysis that you guys have provided on those new proposals that I have?
No, Dustin. Oh, sorry, I just interjected. No, it's just first cost, because we couldn't get the lifecycle tool to download for us, but we'd happily engage with that if somebody could send it along.
So on the lifecycle tool issue, the link to the OFM tool no longer works. So I can send you, Ross, the lifecycle tool. We have it downloaded with SBCC. I need to make it available on our rulemaking page, or on the 2024 cycle page, so people can still utilize that document. And that's something that I've known about for a while, but I've been just slogged with stuff and I haven't had a chance to update that section. But I'm hoping that, after we can hear all three proposals, that we make a motion to refer on the technical merit, a recommendation to adopt one, but we need a decision on that political aspect here that the council should weigh in on. And I like that, Todd says we need some more information for the council to digest on what the projection is. I hear Patrick saying we're not there. The level of EV charging, the demand is not there for the
I'm
level.
just going to interrupt real quick and say you're running up against 4 p.m. You might want a motion to extend the meeting a little bit.
Yes, that would be good as well.
Okay, well, let's hear a motion and doesn't have to be long.
Can I make a motion to extend the meeting to complete this discussion that Dustin's dealing with right now?
Can I?
Okay, by what time? Can we just say 10 minutes and then 4:10?
I make a motion to extend it to 4:15.
4:15, okay. Okay.
This is Tim. I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion and second to extend the meeting to 4:15. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, but
Any opposed?
I'll have to drop off.
Okay, are we gonna lose? We're not gonna make a decision today. Oh, I guess we are. I think we can make a motion, so,
Well,
okay.
we have a motion on the table still, and
No, I think we've taken it off. Or no, you do,
I
I'm
thought
sorry,
it was
I'm
the
sorry,
motion
Tim,
is
you have,
currently to
okay.
table until we hear all three proposals.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. So I would like to see a motion go forward. It says we recommend on the technical merit all three, but we need to choose between all three, and we need the council to do that. So maybe a referral to the council. I'm not sure, but after we hear all three, maybe I can have some time to think about it and maybe wordsmith a proper proposal. And Micah might have an idea.
Regardless, that motion is not right now because we haven't heard the other one. So,
correct.
Thank you, Dustin. Micah.
Well, I'm gonna step on Dustin's toes. I appreciate what you're saying. However, I think that you could also, as a tag, vote these down, all three. It doesn't have to be a recommendation to move them forward. You
That
could
is
say,
true as well.
hey, what we have already as amended by 2021 code, we could carry forward in 2024 if it's accurate to the legislation or technically accurate to the legislation. That could also be an option, so please consider that. Not that I'm recommending that, but I have a lot of other comments, but I can bring them up during the other proposals.
Okay, thank you, Micah. Yes, of course, denial is an option. I'm not hearing that from, that'd be against the desire to get it in a Sierra 102 for more public process, but thank you for that. Michael.
I was just going to speak in support of what Micah suggested also, because I think that is the path that we should go down. I know we're currently right now, we've got the motion to table, and I think that enables that, because if we table this until we hear all three, and then at that point we can entertain motions and have full discussion as to which way we want to go. And obviously that would be the time, if all three are going to be denied, then that would be the time to do it. So. Okay,
thank you, Michael. Patrick, yes, so admittedly, I'm letting a lot of public comment within a motion of the tag, but here we are. Let's keep going. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I just want to say that as representing stakeholders involved in this, the feedback that I've gotten is the current requirement is way beyond where the demand is at. So it's unnecessary material that's going in. It's unnecessary. There's a lot of design time that's involved trying to make sure that they have the parking right and they can fit in the stuff. And so that's why I submitted this proposal. In my view, it still exceeds the minimum definition of the law. So the council's fine there. And I kept it on the EV ready, even though if I could go back to 2021, I would have left the EV ready at 10% and done something more with EV capable, because I think that makes much more cost sense. But even if you lower down to 15, the total EV rate of the fleet in Washington would have to more than double to exceed the combined capacity of having 15% EV ready and 10% EV capable.
Okay.
So
Patrick, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't want to continue deliberation on the merits of it right now. I want to address that in the tag, we're in a motion right now in the process. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I appreciate that feedback. But again, I think everyone understands the current adoption. I want to understand in process the desire of the tag and what information we want the proponents to bring either together or separately, because this next meeting, I think we'll start out, we'll determine what the agenda order is next time, but we're going to hear all three of these together at some point. And what does the TAG need procedurally to make a decision on what our next steps are? So if we can focus on that with the motion on the table, and then we can come back if we need to discuss more, please. Is there any other discussion by the TAG then on what the motion is to table this, and any other process discussion to guide the proponents? Okay, with that, the motion is on petition 068 to table until after we've heard petitions 122 and I believe 135. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. We're not going to open up any other petitions today. Is there any other business we have in the last 10 minutes of the extension? Okay, hearing none. Thank you all. We're going to meet next Thursday at the same time. Is that correct, Dustin?
Yes, sir. Well,
Okay.
I want to maybe discuss with you the amount of work we have in potential extension of the meeting length a little bit. We've got the entire IEBC to cover still, and some long-winded proposals. We've got the EV ones we're going to continue to beat up, and then we have the embodied carbon one, which is anticipated to be a long discussion as well. So we're on a tight timeline to try to finish before Christmas, and we got some holidays in between there as well. And I really want to make this happen before the end of the year. And so I want to get with you, Todd and Roger, to discuss extending the meeting a little bit more, and I can email the group and see if there's issues there as well.
Let's do that, and Roger, you and I can go over the agenda next Monday or Tuesday if we can find time to set this up.
And I'm fine if, I just want to say if you do need to add another day or something like that, I'm putting out a thing because I do think there's a lot of work to get done, and then we're going to be pushing it. So hopefully we could get quorum with maybe adding additional days. So I'll make myself available.
If there's any preference by any TAG members, please reach out to Dustin and myself on if you want to see a certain order and how to address any of these, particularly the ones we know will have a lot of discussion. Go ahead, Micah.
Thanks. Earlier today, I mentioned about a combined meeting, but that was in a message I had received from Ken. Dustin, could you provide info? Is that actually occurring, a combined IFC IBC TAG meeting?
Yes,
I see that on the
considering it a TAG meeting, but a correlation group. We're going to run it open public, and we got some volunteers from this group. We got volunteers from the IFC. Currently, right now, there's a mechanical TAG meeting as well. I'm hoping to get some volunteers from that group. We have one proposal that touches mechanical, fire, and IBC codes. And so we're hoping that within one meeting, we can hit all the proposals that are need some correlation work. We've discussed them preliminarily at the individual tags, and I'm hoping that we can just come together, get some wordsmithing done to make sure we have consistent language across the codes, and come back to this group with a recommendation on those proposals. And that's supposed to happen Tuesday next week.
Will that be posted somewhere before then?
I'm trying to get the agenda drafted here once I get everybody in there.
Cool. I'm sure you're busy. I was just curious. You could just say yes, it will, and I'll check that day.
I'm trying to have that ready for everybody to digest come tomorrow evening or over the weekend. I'll definitely do better than I did on this meeting. I've got just a lot of stuff on the table.
Okay. Thank you. If there's nothing else, then we are adjourned. Appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks, everyone.